International students at Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101 Rice Wine. Okay, let's stop gossip and get straight to the point. We still have classes in the afternoon. Fred said that it's time to talk about business. We'll do fermented barley juice, grape juice, and we've just recently created an oriental magic drink, my personal favorite. As he spoke, Fred walked to the smallest wooden barrel, lifted the lid of one of them, and a faint fragrance overflowed from the barrel. I checked the library book before making wine, which mentioned this kind of wine from the East. I tried brewing it, and it turned out to be surprisingly delicious. He picked up a luren from the side of the barrel, something very familiar, scooped a spoonful of wine from the barrel. Luren took a closer look at the container, which turned out to be half a gourd. Fred was very proud. I checked it out, and the book says that this kind of wine is called Beiju. It was brewed by people in the Central Plains in ancient times. It is very delicious. The most authentic way to drink it is to drink it with half a dried gourd. We call this a scoop. Okay, would you like to try it? It is worth mentioning that this Beiju is not the same Beiju, and this Beiju is different from the liquors seen on the market today. Fred's Beiju is actually an ancient village wine or sweet rice wine in the Central Plains. It is mainly fermented from rice, millet, corn and other grains. In ancient times, the wine filtration technology was also immature, and the fermentation period was short. After the wine was filtered, it usually contained a lot of fine and micro dregs, which would appear white and turbid. Therefore, it is called Beiju, also known as turbid wine. A glass of turbid wine is home to thousands of miles, and Mozionongialagiuhun all refer to this kind of wine. It can be said that this kind of wine has the charm of history. Luren was naturally willing to come and taste the taste of his hometown. Luren took the ladle and drank the turbid wine in one gulp. In fact, rice wine is not considered alcohol, so it doesn't taste very alcoholic, but mainly has a sweet taste, which is no different from a drink. Luren drank 2 scoops one after another. In fact, rice wine is very easy to turn sour, which is mainly caused by improper brewing process or too long storage time. Fred's rice wine is very fresh, with a mellow taste and no sour taste. Yes. You can bring me a copy of this stuff in the future. Luren greatly appreciated. By the way, the shelf life of rice wine is very short. You should drink it up as soon as possible after opening, otherwise it will turn sour. Fred and George, Greek letter sigma, degree Cyrillic letter de degree, Greek letter sigma, Cyrillic letter de. The three discussed for a while, and finally decided that Luren would provide the glutinous rice needed for making rice wine, and then come to make wine with them every week, and the final proceeds would naturally be shared with him. Actually, there is another kind of delicious dessert. Do you want to try it? Luren also wanted to enjoy the fermented glutinous rice in the Central Plains again. The method of fermented glutinous rice is quite simple. You only need to soak the glutinous rice, steam it, add wine medicine and press it tightly. It can be eaten in 2 days. As a dessert, the taste is quite good. Fred's eyes lit up, and he agreed immediately. The three washed the glutinous rice and soaked it, then left this secret base, and came back tomorrow to make mash. Luren also casually poured a pot full of rice wine and took it away. If this goes on like this, you'll drink more than you brew. Although we are partners, we still have to charge for drinks. Fred and George complained. After coming out of the mirror, Fred and George left in a hurry, and it was almost time for the afternoon class. Although Luren didn't have class in the afternoon, he didn't want to waste this time. He hurried to the lounge, intending to change clothes and go to the library to find 2 books to read. When he returned to Gryffindor Tower, Ron was already sitting comfortably by the fire in the common room. There were still a few sweet potatoes on the stove by the side, and Ron flipped them from time to time. Harry was sitting next to him, and the two of them were working on the Nimbus 2000 that Harry had just received today. Luren greeted them, and then quickly rushed into the bathroom, took a shower, changed his clothes, and returned to the restroom refreshed. At this time, the two had put away their brooms and were playing wizard chess. Would you like to play a game with me after this game? Harry's eyes lit up. At this time, he was arguing with his own chess pieces, and Ron's chess pieces obviously didn't trust him. Pointing fingers. Harry's words directly aroused the dissatisfaction of the chess pieces on Ron's side, and they all opened their mouths to curse, as if falling into Lu Ren's hands was a great disaster. One thing to say, it was indeed a disaster for the chess pieces. No, I have something else to do. Ron, I feel like your sweet potatoes are mushy. Lu Ren declined Harry's invitation. Ron hurriedly moved the sweet potatoes away from the stove, but the surface of the sweet potatoes had become charred. With a distressed expression on his face, he kept blowing air on the sweet potatoes, as if blowing air could blow away the paste. Actually, you roast it like this, the outside will be burnt and the inside will still be raw. Lu Ren couldn't see it either. The good sweet potatoes were ruined by Ron. They might as well be used to feed wild boars. Ron, he screamed loudly while being scolded. While breaking open the sweet potato, the inside was still crisp. Sweet potatoes need to be grilled over charcoal fire. How can they be placed on an open fire? Lu Ren said that he has never seen Ron's operation in this way. It is not impossible to open fire. You should stay away. Do you think this is barbecue? Ron, my sweet potato Otto. Harry was even more curious about Lu Ren's movements. What's the matter with you? I'm going to go to the library. Lu Ren knew that he was about to face a very familiar scene after saying these words. Harry and Ron, oh wow, just like in the previous life when he said in class or in the dormitory that he was going to review, Lu Ren's words had a great shock to Harry. Ron. Damn. What did I hear? The library? I thought only that woman would go. Ron, you heard me right. Harry was also shocked. It turns out that Hermione's public opinion is already like this. Lu Ren was also shocked. It feels like only a few days since the start of school. Things are complicated every day, and Hermione still has time to go to the library, still left behind the reputation of loving the library? Okay, I'm going to read a book. Are you going? Lu Ren initiated the library invitation. Harry and Ron look strange. Is it because the brothers are not fun? You guys have to leave the brothers and go to the library? Harry even wondered, did Lu Ren lose so badly at wizard chess that he would rather go to the library than stay and play chess? Seeing that they didn't respond, Lu Ren waved his hand and left the lounge. Ron asked Harry pessimistically, is Lu Ren going to take the shape of Hermione? The male version of Hermione, my god. It's okay, maybe he'll be back in half an hour. Harry comforted Ron. Ron, I bet he'll be back within an hour. If he doesn't come back, I'll eat all these sweet potatoes. End of this chapter. Chapter 102. What is Hogwarts' greatest wealth? 1,000 people may have 1,000 answers, but in Lu Ren's view, no matter in the magic world or the non-magic world, the most precious wealth is books, which condense human wisdom. What is the difference between man and livestock? It is wisdom. Books are the crystallization of human wisdom. The essence of the magic world is in these thousands of bookshelves. Going to the library to read books is not shabby. Lu Ren dared to assert that without the shame of Lord Voldemort, Hermione would have the best development in the trio in the future. Without him, just mastered the knowledge. The black-haired and black-eyed monster walked out of the Gryffindor lounge. The demolition maniac approached the stairs on the 8th floor of the castle. The glutton came to the 2nd floor. Lu Ren walked into the corridor on the 2nd floor, and the future of the wizarding world once again arrived at his faithful library. Revisiting the old place, everything that happened here is vivid, as if everything happened yesterday. Child, you are here again. What do you want? Are you looking for some books? The librarian Mrs. Pants, like the queen of spiders, sensed that someone had stepped into her domain and walked out of the shadows, came out and asked softly. Her attitude towards Lu Ren is very complicated. The kid who came to the library at the beginning of the semester must be a good kid who loves reading, and her eyes destroy. So deep down in her heart, she hoped that this guy would leave here quickly, but she also hoped that this kid came here to study. Very tangled. Degrees. Hi, Professor. I don't have class in the afternoon. I'm here to read some books. I feel that my transfiguration technique is flawed. Do you have any books about transfiguration spells that you can recommend to me? Lu Ren said to Mrs. Pants. He decided to read books on transfiguration this afternoon, and instead of looking for them like a chicken without a head, he might as well consult Mrs. Pants. Mrs. Pants pondered for a while, and murmured in her mouth, books related to transfiguration outside the restricted area include Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration, Intermediate Transfiguration, Advanced Guide to Transfiguration, and Major Discoveries of Contemporary Transfiguration. The transfiguration techniques involved in the first grade are very basic, that is, turning mice into snuff boxes and matches into needles, so the more basic ones are best. She made a decision, and then said to Lu Ren, "I suggest you read 3 books, Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration, History of Transfiguration Development, and Transfiguration, From Beginner to Master. Please wait a moment." Mrs. Pants walked quickly to a bookshelf, took out a book, then took 2 books from the other 2 bookshelves, handed them to Lu Ren, and then continued, "Call me if you encounter problems, don't shoot blindly, okay? Understood." Lu Ren paused, feeling that he had discovered something extraordinary. "Professor, I still have a history of magic tonight, but you know the status of Professor Binns. I usually take 1 word in class. I can't listen to it, I want to light up after class. Don't call me Professor, just call me Mrs. There is no shortcut to learning history of magic. Other books are not as suitable as history of magic. It is very normal that Professor Binns can't listen to the class. I personally suggest that you read the book again after class. What you just looked at is the restricted book area. Unless you can get the authorization of the professors, otherwise, you are not allowed to watch or borrow related books." Mrs. Pingsy turned around and left after recommending to Lu Ren. Seeing her back in the shadows, Lu Ren frowned thoughtfully. He had underestimated the librarian earlier. This lady should have a certain understanding of the entire Hogwarts book collection, and she has nothing else to do on weekdays, so she should have read a lot of books. Her reading volume should be very scary. The magic world is in line with the saying that knowledge is power. For some spells, you can easily break them if you know how to solve them, but if you don't know them, you will die. And if Mrs. Pants has read all the forbidden books, then she is simply a walking catalog of forbidden books. Lu Ren instinctively thought that Mrs. Pants should not be that exaggerated, but her knowledge reserve should not be weaker than that of professors, especially professors at the level of Snape and McGonagall. In such an outrageous position as defense against the dark arts, even recent graduates and con artists who only know the oblivion charm can sit there even if there are various reasons behind it. Finding a secluded corner, Lu Ren sat down at a comfortable angle, and then slowly flipped through the book he just got. The book looks a bit old, and the pages exude the unique smell of old books. However, the book itself is not parchment, but ordinary imitation parchment. Indeed, even for Hogwarts books, only ancient books are made of parchment. This kind of book is generally out of reach on weekdays. What little wizards look at and use is parchment imitated by white paper. If parchment is really used to make paper, few wizards present may be able to afford the expense. The part of a piece of sheepskin that can be used for writing is about 100 x 80 centimeters. Some books in the European Middle Ages often need hundreds of sheep, if the production success rate is 100%. For example, the Seville Bible has 750 pages, each page is 48 x 33 centimeters, and at least 375 sheep are needed. Another example is the Sinai Bible, which requires 360 sheep. Is this reasonable? Is this something ordinary people can afford? Even if it is cutting corners and using rabbit skin, it is also very expensive. A parchment Bible is worth a vineyard. After the introduction of papermaking in the 13th century, parchment was used less, so parchment Bibles were rare in the late 15th century, but Europeans and Americans still used to write important documents on parchment until the 21st century. You can still buy real parchment, about 4 yuan for an A160 size. Parchment has been used in the wizarding world for a little longer, but by the 20s, Hogwarts was basically only using parchment. Just imagine, for a student, it is not too much to use 4 rolls of parchment every week, right? A semester of 18 weeks, 7 years of study, will consume 1,008 sheep. If you were a bitch wizard, would you be able to afford it? Just buying paper will cost 16. However, spending 16 yuan to study in the UK for 7 years does not seem to be very expensive. And you can make some money too. In general, a book in the wizarding world does not exceed 10 galleons. According to the Gringotts exchange rate, it is 50 pounds. You learn a dispelling spell, erase the handwriting, and then disassemble the book to sell paper. 10,000 yuan is not a problem. So it is impossible for the wizarding world to actually use parchment to make paper. Lu Ren stroked the pages of the book and successfully lost his mind. From the chapter to the recommendation ticket, there is nothing I don't want. End of this chapter. Chapter 103, Professor Binns and the History of Magic. Knowledge is the most precious wealth of human beings, and Lu Ren is probably a poor ghost. His brain seems to have leaked a hole. The knowledge passes through the brain, the jokes are kept in his mind. He is not good at reading, and the jokes are top-notch. Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration is by no means a difficult book. After all, The little wizards of Hogwarts are not the kings of the Central Plains who have experienced the baptism of high school education like Lu Ren. Their understanding ability is limited, and they may not even be able to understand calculus. Some children receive a happy education in the non-magic world. For such a child, it is obviously inappropriate to talk about difficult things at the beginning. The sentences in the guide are relatively short and easy to understand. Compared with the latter two books, there are not many confusing words in it. The main problem that bothers Lu Ren is that it is not very convenient to try to perform transfiguration in the library. If something happens again, he is likely to be completely blocked by Mrs. Pants. So Lu Ren decided to read the book first. Then something went wrong. Charm, lacus. Lacus, okay, next page. What was on the previous page? Curus, no, it's lacus. Turn the page. Lars, lacus, whatcus, curus, abba, lacus. Close your eyes and recite 10 times silently. Okay, I remembered the spell is called curacao. Hikin Jiu and Ma Dogma gave a thumbs up. Is there any difference between memorizing English words and memorizing English words if you can't get started? Convex, fucktish. Lu Ren was incompetent and furious. Transfiguration was not easy to understand, but it turned out that he couldn't try it out, and his whole body was not good. Perhaps this is life, the life of a wizard. Lu Ren sat slumped in the armchair and muttered to himself. It is not advisable to just watch the flowers on horseback. The state that just appeared was mainly due to lack of concentration. Lu Ren pinched his face so hard that his face was almost swollen, but after paying such a price, he managed to focus himself, and he started from the beginning bit by bit. After calming down, the messy letters and strange words seemed to be more pleasing to the eye. The pages of the book were turned slowly, and Lu Ren was also immersed in the magical world. When Mrs. Pants's feathered duster suddenly appeared before Lu Ren's eyes, Lu Ren realized that it was already night. More precisely, it was already past dinner time. It was almost 8 o'clock in the evening. This was unbelievable to Lu Ren. He really forgot to eat after reading the book. The time of each class at Hogwarts is not fixed, and the starting time is also not fixed, ranging from 1 hour to 2 hours depending on the course. 2 classes can be arranged in the morning, 1 class can be filled in the afternoon, and there may be another class in the evening. As for chemistry courses like potions, there are usually 2 consecutive sessions, starting from 3 hours. History of magic is quite short, only 1 hour, from 8 o'clock in the evening to 9 o'clock. Today, when Lu Ren finished his work and headed to the library, it was already past 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and he sat for nearly 6 hours. He hurriedly returned the book to Mrs. Pants, thanked him, and hurried to the History of Magic classroom. Fortunately, the History of Magic classroom was also on the 2nd floor, so he arrived in time. Professor Binns is already lecturing in the classroom. Sorry, I'm late. Lu Ren ran all the way to the door of the classroom and apologized to the professor. Professor Binns, I'm very sorry. Before the professor could respond, Lu Ren saw Hermione running over with a small black school bag in her arms. Japanese drama run? Question mark? This term came to Lu Ren's mind first, but the running action does look a bit like a gif of a hot woman. Lu Ren took a photo of the picture in his mind, not to mention that he really felt that way, but when Lu Ren tried to connect Hashimoto Kanna's face with Hermione's body, his mentality collapsed. It's not ugly, it's mainly because I'm afraid of laughing out loud on this occasion. But the smile on the corner of his mouth can no longer be concealed. Since ancient times, real people have ruined anime, and only Gintama has ruined real people. Ron's expression gradually became funny, and he burped a sweet potato flavor. He pressed it into Harry's ear and said, I'll just say, this guy doesn't go to read books. Did he say before, there's something in the book? Jinwuzi and Yumizi, I don't think he's there to read books at all. Lavender's expression also became unfriendly. The little wizards in the audience couldn't wait to take out potato chips, Coke and popcorn, and cheered up to watch the play. Unlike the little wizards watching the show, Professor Binns didn't have any emotional fluctuations. He sat the 2 of them down with an unchanging voice, and then continued to give lectures in a dry voice. The little wizards also quickly broke away from the state of excitement, and everyone's eyes became blurred again. If Professor Binns opened a sleep aid radio station, he might be able to instantly kill all the sleep anchors at Station B. How can soft and astringent love have magic power? But the history of magic, this subject needs to be discussed carefully. History of magic is a compulsory course at Hogwarts. After passing IL, you can choose whether to continue taking NIT level courses, But Lu Ren doubts that anyone will really take it for further study. This is much more than the biochemical ring material pit. The instructor is unreliable, and what he learns cannot directly improve his combat effectiveness. Lu Ren felt that this course should only be taken by big bosses, inferring the location of the ruins by analyzing historical documents, so the direction of development of this course should be archaeology. However, in the magical world, if you rush into the ruins without 2 brushes, there is a high probability that it will become part of the ruins. This class is useless for the vast majority of young wizards. Coupled with the unique teaching method of Professor Binns, the main way for young wizards to learn the history of magic is self-study, by reading textbooks, completing or referring to homework, and browsing the notes of Zubat to learn this course. The so-called defeat is also Zio-He, and success is also Zio-He. Although the user experience of Hogwarts History of Magic course is extremely poor, it is still recognized as the top history of magic course in the wizarding world today. Why? Because there is Professor Binns, who is a wizard in the era of the Big Four, and is living history. Just imagine, when you are curious about what happened in the Battle of Chibi in history, a person who has experienced a Battle of Chibi will tell you about the battle in that year. It's exciting to think about. The records in historical books are one-sided and personal, and sometimes different historical materials conflict with each other. For example, after 1,000 years, the research based on the BBC and the research based on Observer.com have absolutely huge differences in conclusions. All this makes history full of fog, and Professor Binns is the ghost who can blow away the fog. There is nothing more invigorating than experiencing history firsthand. But Lu Ren still had some doubts about it. How did Professor Binns ensure that the things he collected were true? End of this chapter. Chapter 104A, History of Magic. As long as it is human, it will be affected. It is especially difficult for history books to ensure truthfulness and objectivity. For example, Chen Shou's Three Kingdoms was completed 5 years after the Western Jin dynasty unified the Three Kingdoms. Is it close enough to the Three Kingdoms? In order to write this book, Chen Shou collected a large amount of materials and screened them. All the historical materials that he thought were unreliable, doubtful, or unreliable were not recorded in his chronicles of the Three Kingdoms. But this involves subjective judgments and reduces the degree of reliability. Why do you think this matter has developed like this? In fact, lean thinking is quite necessary in history. And this kind of deletion also caused the romance of the Three Kingdoms to be extremely brief, and most people could not understand it. It was not until Pei Songzi's annotations for the romance of the Three Kingdoms that the book became easier to understand. Pei Songzi's bets are no different than those of other people. Other notes are often just explanations of place names and word meanings, but his notes include all the historical materials he has seen, including those that Chen Shou saw but did not use and those that Chen Shou did not see. He annotated all these historical materials behind Chen Shou's original text. He not only makes notes, but also expresses his views. For example, if he thinks this item is unreliable, he will add it, but he will mark this item as unreliable and explain why he thinks it is unreliable. If the two historical materials are contradictory and he can't draw a conclusion, he will put the different materials side by side and let future generations judge by themselves. It can be called the grandfather of DLC and the master of ancient patches. This makes Pei Songzi's anthology of the Three Kingdoms highly credible, but such history books are rare. In the same way, why are Professor Binns' words absolutely credible? Because he lived through that era? No way. Personal experience does not mean that you know the truth. So Lu Ren raised his hand. He needed to identify Professor Binns' sources. Professor Binns is speaking today about the demon America. He was a short-lived but powerful wizard who once became the master of the Elder Wand. He still used his wheezing, dragging voice to slowly and firmly tell a story that should have been very passionate. His voice made it difficult to concentrate, and he would soon fall into drowsiness. At this time, the hand that was raised suddenly was like a firecracker exploding in the middle of the night, attracting the attention of all the little wizards. Harry put his glasses back on, which were about to slip off the bridge of his nose, and Ron's dull eyes gradually brightened. Hermione put down the pen in her hand, and tidied up the scattered notes by the way, lest they slip under the table. The little wizards woke up from their half-dream and half-awake state. Professor Binns was also taken aback. He has only a very weak sense of consciousness about the living students, so students who ask him questions often startle him. Professor Binns regained his composure after a brief shock, and continued to say in his dry voice, "What's the matter? Professor, do you have a reliable source for these historical materials?" Lu Ren asked straight to the point without any politeness. Professor Binns had a rare emotional expression on his face, And he seemed to be smiling. As a historian, Professor Binns understands how valuable the question asked by the little wizard just now is. He knew everything. He knew that almost no young wizards in the audience were listening to his lectures, and he also knew that most of the homework was for official business, but he didn't care. The long lifespan allows him to see many things. He didn't worry about the historical inheritance of the magic world, because wizards like Lu Ren who had the potential to become historians would emerge every few years. Who was the last one? Looks like Bathilda. My course is History of Magic. I study facts, not myths and legends. Facts need reliability. I will collect important news from the wizarding world from all over the world, and I also communicate with other wizards. I will analyze the reliability of sources, compared with the history books. Professor Binns' tone was a little lighter, and he explained the source of his historical knowledge in a calm voice and monotonous sentence patterns. He didn't seem annoyed at all, even if his lecture was interrupted. Do you still have any questions? No more. Thank you, Professor. Very good. Professor Binns paused. You must remember that the research on the history of magic cannot blindly follow authority. You must have the ability to think for yourself and the spirit of questioning. You must be good at collecting and analyzing data. He rarely deviated from the subject of his lecture, and gave the little wizards a piece of advice from the elders. Then, he started to give lectures dryly again. It seemed like an insignificant episode just now, but both sides of the question and answer got satisfactory answers. Binns found another good seedling, and Lu Ren's doubts were answered. He looked down at the book, A History of Magic. What a treasure this is! Lu Ren sighed from the bottom of his heart. A highly reliable history book. For an ethnic group, history is extremely important. How pitiful are civilizations like ancient Egypt and Babylon, whose history is buried and hidden from the world. Their culture was buried in the long river of history with the passing of civilization. This made Lu Ren, who was born in the Central Plains, feel extremely uncomfortable. Without him, the rabbit dies and the fox is sad, and things hurt its kind. Seeing the ruins of Rome, the pyramids of Egypt, and the unrecognized characters of Babylon, people in the Central Plains will sigh from the bottom of their hearts. After all, they were all brothers who played cards at the same table back then, and now there is only the Central Plains left. The opponents changed one after another, but the player from Zhangin kept playing against a new kid on the table. Maybe they have the upper hand for a while, but wait and see. Who has no luck for 100 years, 100 years from now? Let's see what remains of today's players. Lu Ren stopped listening to Professor Binns' scripted babbling, and started to read the history of magic by himself. In fact, calm down and read it. This book is quite interesting. Unlike the Transfiguration textbooks, there are not so many strange words in the history books, but more vivid people and stories. Lu Ren loved to read these since he was a child, like the ancient Chinese reading in the Chinese exam. If there are biographies, Lu Ren will be really happy. There are new stories to read. Lu Ren seldom failed to get full marks for this kind of biographical test questions. There is actually no difference between the book History of Magic and the Central Plains history books that Lu Ren has read, even the vernacular version, and he also gradually understood why it was difficult for little wizards to see these historical facts. It starts with a character image. A historical figure must have three images: history, literature and folk. These three possibilities are very different. For example, Cao in the Three Kingdoms has a very complicated historical image. Mr. Yi Hongshan once commented on Cao in this way: he's extremely clever and stupid, cunning and treacherous, but also frank and sincere, open-minded and suspicious, magnanimous and narrow-minded. In the literary image, thanks to the blessing of Luo Guanzhong, the #1 shoe blower in the world, Cao is a big villain. Luo Guanzhong may be the patriarch of fan humanities, and his fan romance of the Three Kingdoms is much more popular than the original fan authors. Should really pay homage to this old man before publishing a book. And his folk image is very interesting. Captain Majin and the patriarch of Lao Wang next door, when talking about Cao, they are nothing more than images of good wife. In some film and television works of later generations, barrages are often seen, saying, "This Cao doesn't act like it." Then Lu Ren wanted to ask, well, have you seen the real Cao? The image that lives in a person's heart is the folk image of that person. Here comes the problem. Those wizards in the ancient magic world only have historical images, not literary and folk images. This makes the study of them extremely boring. What if there is a wizarding coalition army that burns 80 goblin water troops in Loch Ness? The demon Emeric pulls out the old one stuck in the lake, and Grindelwald causes Dumbledore to forget to lock a door in Nuremberg stories like taking advantage of the situation, then the history of magic class will be much more interesting. Unfortunately not. No wonder the little wizards are not interested in this thing. There is no sense of substitution at all in their eyes. These historical figures are nothing more than boring names. Talk about my own views on history and history books. The words of a family are insignificant. End of this chapter. Chapter 105. This is the end of today's class. Get out of class is over. Professor Binns said a concluding remark after assigning homework, ending today's class. Then he picked up the lesson plan, walked across the blackboard silently, and left the classroom. All the little wizards came back to life as if they had just woken up from a dream while exercising their stiff muscles. They left the classroom with their familiar partners. Lou Ren was no exception. Respecting Professor Binns doesn't conflict with being sleepy in his class. He yawned as he walked out of the classroom with Ron. Be honest. What did you do in the library today? Ron put his arms around Lou Ren's neck with a smirk on his face. Lou Ren was at a loss. What else can I do in the library? Read books. Ron, this kid has a tough mouth. Gollum, what sound? I'm hungry. Lou Ren remembered that he didn't have dinner. He looked at Ron with burning eyes. Lou Ren, 3, Ron, Cyrillic letter deck. You must have hidden some food, right? If anyone in Gryffindor could be searched for food, it would be Ron. Ron, honestly, did you go to the library to study there by yourself? Yes. Lou Ren replied frankly. Ron, Zuba is actually by my side. Well, I'll trust you once. Ron, who failed to gossip, gave up asking. Back in the dormitory, he conjured up a hanger of sausages, some cold pies, and some apples. Lou Ren was astonished. Are you Doraemon? Why do you have so much food there? Ron's patron saint is not a hamster, it's not magic. They all sat down by the fire together. Lou Ren didn't beep anymore. He directly inserted the sausage with tongs and put it on the fire. The pies are heated slowly over the fireplace by using the levitation charm. While waiting for the sausage to be cooked, Lou Ren slowly nibbled on the apple and took out the history of magic. Let's play wizard chess. Ron took out his big treasure, a set of ancestral wizard chess. To tell you the truth, you really need to improve your chess skills. Your game really stinks. Fuck. He uttered a voice that made Lou Ren almost choke in fright. After swallowing the apple stuck in his throat, Lou Ren complained, "What the hell are you doing? You actually read a book while eating. And you're still reading a history of magic." Ron's mouth grew so big that people couldn't help but have a bold idea. It must be possible to stuff a whole apple into it, right? Harry was also surprised. Isn't this guy's taste too unique? Lou Ren sighed. I'm just curious about the history of the magic world, and this book is really good. Still, he closed the book. In fact, I used to be quite annoyed by those people who read with a book in their arms everywhere they go. As a result, I have become like this now. People will eventually become the kind of people I hate. Lou Ren said, a little feeling. I have already arrived in the magic world. Why are you still scrolling? Harry pondered for a while, then said, then can I hate rich people? Lou Ren and Ron? Question mark? The atmosphere is completely gone. Fortunately, although the atmosphere is gone, the sausage is baked. After eating 3 pies and 5 sausages in one sitting, Lou Ren chose a comfortable position to lie down in the armchair. Time passed in the midst of fighting, and soon Lou Ren was the only one left in the bustling common room. Lou Ren took out the history of magic and pretended to read it for a while until midnight. He took the necklace presented by Grindelwald from his neck, turned the little stick in the middle representing the Elder One 3 times, and then the little stick fell down. Lou Ren was dumbfounded. Is the quality of this thing so poor? Fortunately, it's not that the quality is poor, but that's how it was designed. The small metal stick floated up danglingly, and then floated to the side of the fireplace that was about to go out, and began to write on the ashes. A very familiar sentence, how are you? Then the little stick floated in the air and didn't move. It seemed that he wanted Lou Ren to write on the ashes with it. Lou Ren fell silent as he looked at the somewhat blackened stick that had been roasted by the charcoal fire. In the next 10 years, brain congestion can't design this kind of contact method. Shouldn't it be 3 twists to turn on something like voice chat? What the hell are you doing with this kind of handwriting input? Handling this will definitely burn you, right? In fact, Lou Ren wrongly blamed Grindelwald. The most powerful ability of this pendant is actually that Grindelwald can perceive it after touching it, and then operate over it is equivalent to super powerful psychic means. Thinking about it, It is still very touching to shout "Go, Grindelwald!" after a fight. But Hogwarts bans operation. So the necklace was temporarily changed by Grindelwald. It was changed to such an outrageous setting. And Grindelwald, who is far away in Durmstrang, is still wondering, what's going on? Why didn't you reply for a long time? At Hogwarts, Luren finally extinguished the fire, and then cooled the writing pen with his magic word, and wrote the classic dialogue on the ashes of the furnace, "I'm fine, thank you, and you?" The conversation with the original Dark Lord became like an elementary school English text. The two chatted for a few words, and then Grindelwald told Luren some important things he had done recently. Luren was shocked. "So you are saying that the famous Dark Lord escaped from prison, then wiped out a ministry of magic, robbed, million galleons, and is now a teacher of the history of magic?" And he didn't expect that Grindelwald really went to rob the bank. At that time, the Daily Prophet was very vague. It didn't say that Gringotts was on the verge of bankruptcy because of being robbed of money, but that the investment failed. Isn't that right? If you spend money to buy things and get robbed of the money, it can be regarded as an investment failure. Luren told Grindelwald about his recent situation, and mentioned that he has the last Sorcerer's Stone in his hand. "Old man, do you need it?" As a result, the pen wrote another line on the ashes. "I also got several dollars back then, and I gave them to Roger as skincare products, so you can keep them." There is a sense of arrogance between the lines. The Philosopher's Stone can extend life, turn stones into gold, and make people stay young forever. As a result, Grindelwald actually gave such precious things directly to his subordinates as cosmetics. "As expected of you, Grindelwald." After sighing, the conversation between the two also came to an end. After saying goodnight to each other, Luren put the stick back on the necklace, and then smoothed out the ashes. Then he returned to his dormitory, took out the little chubby tiger to play, and fell asleep with the furry little tiger in his arms. End of this chapter. Chapter 106, A New Age at Hogwarts. Early the next morning, Luren was woken up by the tiger with 2 small meat pads. Hogwarts has officially opened a new chapter. This feeling of shock was particularly strong when they came to the auditorium. There are still 4 long tables in the auditorium, but there is an extra long table near the wall, with photos of some dishes on it, and the prices of these dishes under the photo frame. The little wizards have to take a tray from the beginning of the table, and when they find their favorite food on the way, they can press the badge on the portrait to pay for the purchase. After the payment is successful, a plate with food will appear in front of the portrait. It looks so much like a cafeteria. Luren felt that the scene in front of him seemed familiar. However, there are many advantages to ordering meals separately, which can effectively reduce waste. The frontmost position of the long table is the appetizer, followed by the main course, soup and main course, followed by the dessert, and the drink at the end. Luren bought an egg for 1 crystal at the appetizer, bought a bacon sandwich for 4 crystals, and finally got a free bowl of porridge. A total of 5 crystals are consumed for a breakfast. Ron was in much more pain. All his usual favorite meals had become paid meals. The key was that he didn't have any money on hand. Quite a few young wizards looked constipated, and it seemed that they had more than enough hard and not enough benefits, so they could only silently pick up the free oatmeal and white toast to secretly feel sad. The atmosphere in the entire auditorium was very gloomy, but maybe this is life, and many times we have no choice. But there is nothing that Luren is not used to. Isn't this a cafeteria? Very kind. No news from the owls during breakfast this morning. Business as usual. Luren and the others swallowed their breakfast in a few mouthfuls, and then hurriedly headed to the gate of the castle. Their first class in the morning was Professor Sprout's herb class again, and they were still with Hufflepuff's first-year students. Attend class. Herbal medicine class is very special class. Other subjects generally only have 1 or 2 classes a week, and herbal medicine is extremely rare to be held 3 times a week. Professor Sprout came a little earlier this time, and she was already waiting at the gate of the castle when the little wizards arrived. Today, Professor Sprout was a little excited, with a smile on the corner of her mouth. Naturally, the reason was that she could teach according to her own teaching plan. It's funny to say that the herbal medicine class that has been declared to only be held in the greenhouse, only the first class of this semester is held in the greenhouse. The rest of the time everyone is in the fields. As a well-known good guy, the dean of the Honest Man Academy couldn't bear it anymore. Herbal medicine class is not farming. Professor Dumbledore, you misunderstood the herbal medicine class too much. Can Professor Flitwick teach the harvest curse lesson? Can I trouble Professor Snape to explain the preparation of fertilizer? The professors of other subjects are already teaching normally, but I am still farming on my side. What a shame. Fortunately, today everything is finally back on track. Professor Sprout didn't eat much of the excited breakfast, and rushed to the door early to wait for the lovely children to appear. She couldn't wait to take the children to the greenhouse for class. Professor Sprout today is wearing a khaki suit and a patched hat. However, the dirt on the corners of the clothes in the past has disappeared. After everyone was assembled, Professor Sprout slapped his hands and signaled the students to keep up with him. Okay, let's go to the greenhouse today. Sprout was in a good mood. Today's destination is the first greenhouse. Although I have emphasized the discipline of the greenhouse to you when I started school, but after a long time, I have almost forgotten about it. Remember, you must obey my instructions in the greenhouse, and it is strictly forbidden to act without authorization. She paused, and her tone became serious. I have also read Professor Snape's rules, and it has inspired me a lot. It is extremely important to develop good experimental operation habits. I hope you get into good habits in first grade so you can keep yourself safe. While speaking, Professor Sprout led the students to the door of the first greenhouse. She looked at the little wizards in front of her and showed a gratified smile. Finally, she can teach the children in the greenhouse. Her gaze swept across the entire team, and quickly locked onto the group of 4 at the end of the team, more precisely, the first-year freshman who overwhelmed Cedric, Luren. At this time, Luren was happily describing the deliciousness of pork belly to his friends, and he decided to invite his classmates to a meal of pork belly with pork belly this afternoon. It just so happened that I hunted a wild goat yesterday and ate it quickly while the meat was still fresh. Professor Sprout was very curious about Luren. His leapfrog challenge on Saturday made her remember the name Luren, and his performance yesterday left a deep impression on her. She made an impromptu decision. Before class begins, I want to ask you a few questions. As soon as this sentence came out, the whole class fell silent, and Luren and the others also shut their mouths. Luren had a sentence stuck in his throat and couldn't get it out. Why did Professor Sprout start asking questions before class? Is this a bad learning from Professor Snape? Luren. Sprout said suddenly, where does the walnut plant come from? Luren was stunned at first. He didn't expect Sprout to ask himself a question. The first reaction in his mind was, walnuts are originally produced in Liu, and fire attribute spears are mainly distributed in Wuwangpo. Luren really wanted to say this, but he held back. He really knew the answer to this question, because he had seen the setting of the walnut wand before. Walnuts are native to the Eurasian region between the Balkans and southwestern China, and the Kyrgyz region is the most common. Sprout nodded. Not bad. It seems that fame does mean something. The plant of lovage is the most likely to cause encephalitis. It is often used in drugs for confusion and delusion, causing people to be impatient and reckless. Where is it distributed? Luren broke into cold sweat. This is too supernatural, but fortunately, Snape had mentioned it during the holiday when he was preparing the intoxication potion. Europe, I suppose. Professor Sprout looked approvingly. Yes, lovage is mainly distributed in Europe and Asia. Next is the last question. Damn Dick, stop asking. Luren really didn't want to challenge anymore. This was different from the potions class where you knew the answer. This kind of question that never knew what the next question would be was really exciting. Acacia is a shrub in the Fabaceae mimosa subfamily. Its leaves are generally feathery compound leaves. In what area do the species that grow usually have spikes? Luren. What? His impression of acacia wood was that it was a wand wood, and acacia wand generally denies the use of magic to anyone but its owner, and it only shows its power to the most gifted. Therefore, wizards who use acacia wood as wands are likely to be extremely talented. But what does this have to do with spikes? But the spikes seem to be used to protect themselves and reduce water evaporation? That would be a gamble. Desert. Luren spat out a word. Great. Professor Sprout clapped his hands excitedly. 15 points for Gryffindor. End of this chapter. Chapter 107. The Hogwarts Kitchen. Hearing this sentence, Luren heaved a long sigh of relief. He tried his best to barely get a HD ending. If there are a few more questions, he really can't stand it. The following courses are quite satisfactory. Professor Sprout successfully carried out the greenhouse teaching she had been thinking about, and Luren was not called up to answer questions. Everyone was very happy. Herbalism is followed by charms with Professor Flitwick. Today's lesson is relatively simple. It is to learn the cutting spell. This Luren is familiar. Marcus, the wild goat, and the wild boar of the Forbidden Forest can attest that no one knows how to cut better than me. So it was another unremarkable and calm course. When class was over, Lou Ren hurriedly took Ron, Harry and Hermione and went straight to the cafeteria. According to his experience, he has to hurry up and go to the cafeteria after class. The 1 minute of delay after the last class in the morning will be converted into 10 minutes in the cafeteria. They rushed from the 4th floor of the castle to the auditorium as quickly as possible, and then they each received a piece of black bread and bacon and left in a hurry. Ron looked at the dark brown black bread and fatty bacon in his hand with a look of disgust, and sighed. I didn't expect Ron to be reduced to this kind of situation. Only owls would like to eat these. Lou Ren, lunch is up to you. Harry said mercilessly that owls don't like to eat this stuff either. Lou Ren, they're all bullshit. So hungry, they should really see the life of the bottom people in the third world countries. It would be nice to have black bread and bacon. In the 21st century, Haiti still eats mud pie. But it might improve in the near future. They can talk to a certain island and exchange mud cakes for the unsaleable rotten pineapples on the island. In this way, Haitians can eat pineapples rich in protein, and the islanders have mud for land reclamation. This is a co-win. Lou Ren left the auditorium with his 3 friends, and was about to go to the basement level of the castle, where the Hufflepuff common room was located, and the Hogwarts kitchen was next to the lounge. Where are you taking us? Hermione asked curiously. Lou Ren suddenly realized a problem. Hermione meeting the house elf. This scene must be very exciting. It's better not to light this powder keg yourself. He paused, turned his head and said to the 3 of them, the front area. I can go alone. You are here. Don't move around. I will go back as soon as I go. Hermione? Question mark? Why? Harry asked curiously. Hey. Lou Ren couldn't think of any reason for a while, so he just passed the test by being cured anyway. Hermione is a very well-behaved person. If you tell her not to walk around at will, she really won't walk around at will. Hey, what do you mean? Hermione stomped her feet, but she still stood there obediently, not moving around casually. The 3 of them watched Lou Ren's small back gradually recede on the stairs, and finally disappeared in the shadow of the corner. Walking down the stairs, Lou Ren checked the location. It was his first time here. Although he knew that the cafeteria was next to the Hufflepuff lounge, he also knew that the Oriental Pearl Tower was on the Bund. If you throw people in Pudong, 99% of them will not be able to find them without navigation. Knowing and finding are not the same thing. He looked around and saw an open door to his left leading into a brightly lit corridor. This corridor was the opposite of the underground passage leading to Snape's potions classroom. The bright corridor was full of pictures of various foods. Needless to say, not having the Hufflepuff lounge in this corridor would make as much sense as Muggle-borns being sorted into Slytherins. I remember it was a bowl containing fruit. Lou Ren looked carefully at the portraits, and suddenly he saw a huge silver bowl full of fruits. He walked up to the portrait and gently scratched a chubby pear inside, and then the pear chuckled, wriggled and deformed, and turned into a huge green doorknob. Lou Ren twisted it, and the door opened, revealing the Hogwarts kitchen in front of his eyes. The kitchen is a room with a very high ceiling. The hall is as big as the auditorium, and the walls are also made of stone. There is a large pile of shiny copper utensils under the wall on the left, and a large brick fireplace is directly opposite the door. On the right is the same table as the long ordering table in the auditorium. Hundreds of elves are busy inside. They were quickly putting plates of dishes on the table, and then snapped their fingers, and the dishes were sent to the little wizard who was ordering in the auditorium. Lou Ren glanced at the dishes on the plate. Everyone ate very simple. Seeing someone coming in, an elf quickly ran up to Lou Ren, bowed deeply to him, and his slender nose almost touched the carpet. It was wrapped in a tea towel bearing the Hogwarts crest, and had 2 large bat-like ears, and a pair of protruding green eyes the size of tennis balls. After bowing, he looked up at Lou Ren, and said in a sharp voice, "Sir, is there anything Toto can do for you? I'm Lou Ren. Professor Sprout saved 2 animals for me yesterday. I hope to take that sheep away." Toto bowed again, and said with enthusiasm, "No problem, sir." Then he ran away quickly, and after a while brought over a skinned goat, which was exactly what Lou Ren hunted yesterday. The one that arrived. Lou Ren took the goat and thought for a while, "Can you shave the lamb for me? I only need the tripe for the internal organs. If possible, can I ask for some seasoning?" "Thank you. It is our honor to serve you." "Needless to say, thank you." "No problem, sir. What seasonings do you need?" Toto took the goat back and put it on a chopping board. "Salt, pepper, Chinese prickly ash, star anise, cinnamon, onion, ginger, garlic, onion shavings, and carrot juice. Lu Ren blushed. This is really a billion-point seasoning, but there is no way. Cooking needs a lot of spices. But Toto still agreed Professor Dumbledore just doesn't allow the elves to provide food directly to the students, and it's okay to give some seasoning. Toto picked up a kitchen knife and dismantled the goat. He deftly turned the kitchen knife and shaved off pieces of meat. Soon the whole sheep was shaved, leaving only a pile of bones. The mutton bones and tripe were all packed into a clean sack by him. According to Lu Ren's request, he prepared some seasonings and handed them to Lu Ren in a small bag. In Toto's warm farewell, Lu Ren left the kitchen with a sack of mutton and a small bag of spices. It wasn't until Lu Ren's figure disappeared that he straightened up and slowly closed the kitchen door. In fact, I also sympathize with what happened to the house elves. It's so miserable. End of this chapter. Chapter 108. Lu Ren returned to the auditorium and directly called the three of them to go with him as soon as possible. This dish is quite time-consuming, so hurry up. The four of them trotted all the way to the ideal cooking place that Lu Ren had identified, Hagrid's hut. Hagrid's attitude towards Harry is close, and he is friendly to himself and others. It is no problem to cook in his territory. At least you don't need to worry about the food being confiscated halfway through cooking or being cut off while waiting for the mutton to be cooked. They had just come near Hagrid's cabin when they heard Fang's sonorous cry. Hydra opened the door, and seeing that it was Harry and the others, she couldn't help showing a surprised expression. You should be having lunch at this time. Why did you come to my place? Hagrid asked in a low voice. Lu Ren stepped forward and explained his reason for coming to him. Hagrid suddenly realized and laughed. He patted Lu Ren on the shoulder and made him stagger. I didn't expect you to be able to hunt at such a young age. Hagrid smiled heartily. Do you need my help? No, no, no. Lu Ren rubbed his swollen shoulders, politely rejecting Hagrid's offer. Hagrid gave him plenty of firewood, though. Lu Ren dug a big hole on the ground in the backyard of Hagrid's hut, put the firewood in it, and put some dead branches and leaves as fuel for the fire. Then he drew out his wand, knocked out a string of sparks, and ignited the firewood. The fire was raised, and the unique smell of burning wood gradually wafted out. Lu Ren was not idle either. He picked a board from the rest of the wood, cleaned it a bit, and used it as a cutting board, on which he put the mutton. The goats that Lu Ren hunted weighed only 70 catties, and the shaved meat was less than 30 catties. Toto had already cut the meat into palm-sized pieces, which was convenient for Lu Ren. He sprinkled the mutton with his own seasonings and mixed them together. After that, he stuffed the seasoned mutton into the lamb belly bit by bit. This dish originated from the Calamic Prairie, and the locals call it a poor man's dish. Lu Ren explained the origin of this dish while stuffing the meat. These poor people seem to be quite rich, and they can afford such a dish. Ron complained. Lu Ren smiled and said that the local people were nomads, and there were still a lot of livestock, but iron products such as pots were luxury goods, and the poor had no pots, so they could only cook mutton in this way. Of course, this is also the opinion of Lu Ren's family. However, the Central Plains also has a similar famous dish called beggar's chicken, which is similar to this mutton belly. Poor people and beggars have almost the same meaning. In Lu Ren's opinion, this dish can also be called beggars. Soon the meat was all stuffed in, and the tripe became bulging. Lu Ren left a copper pipe at the opening of the lamb tripe. This is very important. It can be used to let the steam out during stewing. If not, the lamb tripe will swell and burst. Then he took out a thread and tied the mouth of the goat belly tightly. Lu Ren picked up the lamb bones that had just been marinated, cast a floating spell on them, and let them float above the flames to roast slowly. To be honest, knowing the levitation charm is quite practical. At least he doesn't need to worry about how to roast these bones on the fire now. On top of the mutton bones, Lu Ren put some bacon and black bread. The fat oozing from the bacon drips on the mutton bones, which not only makes the meat not so fatty, but also adds a little fat to the mutton bones so that they will not be burnt. Would you like some roasted bacon sandwiched with black bread? Lu Ren extended a sincere invitation to Ron. Ron looked at the weird black bread, smelled the faint sour smell, and shook his head. Even if Ron, were starved to death, I wouldn't take a bite of black bread. Brother, please have another one, thank you. Ron swallowed the black bread in his mouth with the water in the kettle. After the reform, pumpkin juice is also a paid drink. Lu Ren handed 2 slices of black bread with bacon to Ron. Eat slowly, the lamb bones will take a while to bake. Ron took the bread, took a bite, and said with a smile, "Oh, it's so delicious." Lu Ren, soon, The bones of the lamb were almost roasted, and the four of them ignored the burning of their mouths, and quickly gnawed the bones clean, and the bones were not wasted. The bone was thrown to Tooth, and let it go with a molar. After eating more than 10 caddies of mutton bones and bacon and black bread for 4 people, the 4 people were already full. Lu Ren made some clay and spread an even and thick layer of mud on the tripe in order to keep the stomach intact and prevent it from being cracked by roasting. Lu Ren specially applied more clay so that the soil would turn into shell under high temperature and protect the meat inside. It's a pity that there is no lotus leaf, and a sheep tripe was wasted in vain. Lu Ren felt a little sorry for this. It seems that there is an improved method for this dish. Put the lamb tripe around the hot stone, and let the heat of the stone cook the meat inside. However, Lu Ren didn't know the specific steps, and he didn't dare to try indiscriminately, so he had to give up. Anyway, so much water wasted, so it's not bad. Lu Ren comforted himself after the mud was wrapped. The fire pit was almost ready. By this time the flames in the fire pit had been extinguished. All that remains is the scalding charcoal and this oil that has turned brown due to the heat. The charcoal emitted billowing white smoke under the high temperature, and Lu Ren used a floating spell to move them out. The temperature even made him sweat all over. You know, this is the Scottish Highlands in September. Today's temperature is only 10 degrees. Soon, the charcoal ash formed a small hill, with a faint red light emitting from it. Lu Ren put the morel wrapped in mud inside, and then covered it with charcoal ash. All that is needed now is to wait. After 5 hours, the residual heat of the charcoal fire will cook the meat, and then a bag of delicious and juicy mutton can be scooped out and eaten, and it happens to be dinner time. While other little wizards ate black bread and drank cold water, Lu Ren and the others could enjoy mutton. This is the advantage of mastering a craft. After everything was dealt with, Lu Ren and the others bid farewell to Hagrid and returned to Hogwarts Castle. They still had classes in the afternoon. It's Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration. The students in the same class this time are the little wizards of Ravenclaw. After a week of study, the little wizards have basically mastered the key points of turning matches into needles. The theme of today's transformation class is to test the students' learning results. Lu Ren and the others went back to the tower first, changed into a set of clothes, cleaned off the smell of fireworks, and left for the Transfiguration classroom after a short rest. When they entered the classroom, Professor McGonagall, in human form, was already waiting in the classroom. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 Quidditch Trials. After Professor McGonagall and others arrived, the class began. This time she didn't do any tricks of catgirl transformation or pig transformation. The whole work was only done in the first week. How could she do it every day? What's the difference between a professor of transfiguration and a juggler? She went straight to the point. I have taught you how to turn a match into a needle last week. I sincerely hope that you will practice more. Today I will check your learning results. From you, start. Professor McGonagall pointed to a Ravenclaw girl and asked her to deform the match in front of her eyes. With a waving of the wands, the matches in front of the little wizards transformed one by one. Some turned into needles, and some could barely be said to have the appearance of needles. In the words of high EQ, there is the artistic conception of needles. Lu Ren has given up understanding things like transfiguration with his own 3 views, and now he is just a ruthless imitation machine according to the scriptures. The principle of transfiguration is actually to wrap a layer of magic on the object, so that the object can be deformed into the appearance of one's imagination. The principle is similar, so the actual operation will not be too troublesome. With a wave of his magic wand, Lu Ren turned the match in front of him into a needle. This is unscientific, but very magical. Lu Ren, be more careful, and remember to focus. Professor McGonagall reminded him casually, and left. To Lu Ren's surprise, apart from Hermione and Lu Ren, the third person who could completely transform a match into a needle was actually Harry. In fact, as a 3rd grader, he could summon the God-calling guards, repel hundreds of Dementors, and kill Voldemort alone. Although Voldemort has already been set with the Endeavor, Harry, who became an Auror after graduation, is definitely not bad at talent. People in later generations really underestimated him. This impression probably originated from Harry's expelling arms that he used no matter what the occasion. The rest of the time is nothing more than free training and targeted guidance from Professor McGonagall. After Lou Ren continued to entangle with his matches for a while, this transformation class also came to an end. When Professor McGonagall announced the end of Get Out of Class at the podium, many young wizards breathed a sigh of relief. If Snape feared the students with his ruthlessness, then Professor McGonagall feared the students with his strictness. Soon after Transfiguration class, it was dinner time. Lou Ren brought the three of Harry and his team members to the open space behind Hagrid's hut. At this time, the charcoal fire has basically been extinguished, leaving only the hot land. Lou Ren carefully dug up the ashes, and took out a big black mud pellet from inside. All of a sudden, everyone's expressions became extremely complicated. Malfoy couldn't help but said, "This is what you want to treat us to? A big mud ball." Lou Ren just asked him to wait a moment. He put the gold tripe on a wooden pier, carefully peeled off the large lumps of soil that had formed into lumps, and then used a cleaning spell to make the gold tripe surface a little cleaner. Then he carefully cut open the tripe, revealing the steaming hot mutton, and the aroma also wafted out. He made a gesture of invitation, indicating that everyone can start. Everyone lit a bonfire together, and the juicy mutton became their dinner. Harry invited Hagrid to join them at the dinner party in a peaceful atmosphere. Everyone divided up the mutton. The agreed trial training time is getting closer and closer. Harry went back to the castle first, took his Nimbus 2000, and then joined Lou Ren and headed to the Quidditch pitch just north of the castle. At this time, the stadium has been restored to its original appearance. There is a circle of stands on the periphery. Hundreds of chairs are neatly arranged on the stage. At each end of the court are three gold-topped poles with rings. To be honest, it looks a bit like the small plastic sticks that Lou Ren used to blow soap bubbles when he was a child, except that these sticks are as high as 15 meters. Harry couldn't hold back his excitement, and directly rode on the broom and flew into the sky. Lou Ren looked at him soaring in the sky like a bird, showing envy. Although he can fly himself, there is a big difference between carefully controlling the sand table and riding a broom comfortably. Soon, Senior Wood came. He carried a large crate under one arm and a broomstick in the other. He looked at Harry, who was up and down in the air, and quickly shuttled between the goalposts. His eyes were shining. "He flies really well, doesn't he?" Wood said to Lou Ren, without concealing his admiration for Harry. Yes, great reading," Lou Ren nodded like a chicken pecking rice. "But Senior, why was I called here too? My performance in flying class is very average." It is said that Lou Ren is generally flattered, but his performance is not ordinary. He directly played the role of Neville. "The clown is me." Wood glanced at him, and Lou Ren understood a lot from his eyes. "Row-tow, everyone is here? There is no shortage of this one." For a moment, Lou Ren thought he had learned Loudang's mind-reading skills. "Ahem," Wood coughed dryly, "your performance on Saturday was very good. Fred and George are very optimistic about you. They think you have the potential to become a batsman. I think Quidditch should start from the freshmen. Although you can't join the team for the time being, you can start training with the team from the first grade, starting as a substitute." Lou Ren thinks this is a spare tire, and it's a substitute for Gemini. What's the difference between that and being a substitute goalkeeper for Juventus? Well, the difference is that there can only be one goalkeeper in football matches. Still, it's interesting to think of Quidditch as a form of entertainment, regardless of winning and losing. Most sports are very interesting except running. But Senior Wood set up a huge banner, the last big country that said that the XX movement will start with dolls. This project has already sprinted backwards to the forefront of Asia. Senior Wood looked at Harry in the air and sighed. "You're new, you don't understand. Gryffindor hasn't won the Quidditch Cup for 5 years in a row. I remember last year's final against Slytherin, where we lost to them. I saw Angelina sitting on the chair, weeping. At that moment, I was thinking that if I were the captain of Gryffindor, I would definitely win the Quidditch Cup. Now our biggest shortcoming is about to be made up, and the trophy is in front of me. We must seize this opportunity. I believe that Gryffindor's past dominance is due to generations of legendary seeker predecessors. It is our duty to recast the glory of Gryffindor." Senior Wood recalled the glory of the past and the humiliation of the present, and his whole body became excited. End of this chapter. Chapter 110. Born to Fly. "Come down, Potter." Wood regained his composure after venting his inner emotions, and he called Harry down from the sky. "Professor McGonagall is right, you are a genius." Wood waited for Harry to hit the ground, and immediately hit the straight ball. Harry was a little caught off guard by the sudden praise, and everyone was a little confused. What happens? Why did the senior suddenly say that I am a genius?" Seeing that Harry didn't realize his outstanding talent, Wood thought for a while and handed the broom to Lu Ren. Come on, go up and fly. Lu Ren, meow meow? Question mark? Senior, it is not advisable to forcibly step on a bunch of them. 30 years in heaven and 30 years in Hexy, don't bully the young and poor. Of course, the development line of this sentence in reality is roughly like this. Don't bully the young to be poor. Don't bully the middle-aged to be poor. Don't bully the old and poor. The dead are the greatest. But it's still a shame not to steam the buns. Lu Ren, who was treated as a green leaf, was still very upset. He stepped on the broom, kicked his feet hard, and left the ground. The broom brought by Wood is a sweeping 7-star. Although it is not a top broom like the Nimbus 2000, it is still a very good broom. It is not comparable to the old-school brooms at all. At least its designer has fully considered the user experience of the user. After Lu Ren stepped on it, he felt like sitting on a bicycle seat, rather than the bad experience of having a stick in his crotch. Wood drew out his wand, ready to give Lu Ren a floating spell. Lu Ren went to heaven. He could feel the evening Scottish autumn wind in his hair, his robes whirring behind him. He wasn't a fast start, so the wind felt good at this time. Lu Ren's legs were hanging in the air, blood slowly flowed to his calves, and a slight sense of weightlessness was transmitted to his brain. Lu Ren seemed to be on a roller coaster that had just started. He got excited. Lu Ren once thought that he was a good candidate for a pilot, until he became short-sighted because every time he did roller coasters and pirate ships, when his companions were screaming, he felt a primitive throbbing from the bottom of his heart. That was a strong sense of excitement. The most frightening thing about entertainment facilities like roller coasters is the feeling of weightlessness when falling, but this kind of feeling that scares others can only make Lu Ren more excited. Although he didn't know what the specific requirements for becoming a pilot were, Lu Ren had an intuition that he belonged to the sky. He subconsciously raised the broomstick a little more, allowing it to fly higher and faster. The wind became stronger, and Harry and Wood on the ground had become two small black spots, and he could see the entire Hogwarts castle within his field of vision. Lu Ren touched the broom, and the broom turned sharply, and shook him. Lu Ren was taken aback for a moment, and then laughed again. Wood looked at Lu Ren flying in the sky, and heard his laughter. His eyes lit up unexpectedly. There are two creeping dragons and phoenix chicks hidden in a small first grader. Wood's act of giving the broom to Lu Ren was a test in itself, because it is very difficult for a little wizard without flying talent to drive an unfamiliar broom. If Lu Ren can fly this broom for the first time, it shows that his talent is really good. Now it seems that that day was really just an accident. This first-year freshman has high potential. Looking down at the ground from a height, Lu Ren felt dizzy. Suddenly he had a bold idea. He turned the broom downwards, then dived at a high speed, and when he was about 5 or 6 meters above the ground, he turned the broom upwards, passing over the heads of Harry and the two of them, and brought them up. There was a strong wind. Looking at Lu Ren playing in the air, Harry knew that it was a certainty that Lu Ren would become a substitute. Lu Ren, come down. Wood put his hands in the shape of a trumpet and shouted at Lu Ren in the sky. Lu Ren dived directly, then made a maneuver on the ground, and jumped off the broom before it stopped. His ears were red with excitement. He put his hands on his cheeks, and shouted excitedly to Wood, who came over, I'm really high. Wood hugged Lu Ren tightly, and when he saw Harry approaching, he stretched out his other hand, holding Harry in his arms, showing the appearance of embracing left and right. He laughed triumphantly. His image was the same as Kagoro Mori, who was drunk. With these two, why worry about losing the trophy? He was so happy that he rumpled Lu Ren in Harry's hair. He assured Lu Ren that he would submit an application to Professor McGonagall as soon as he got back. Although it would be difficult to hire another person, adding a substitute was more than enough. However, Lu Ren's position was a bit embarrassing. The Seeker's position had already been reserved by Harry, and the twin batsmen of the Lion Court were already the best batsman combination in Hogwarts. It was originally planned to let Lu Ren practice first and take over after the twins graduated, but now that Lu Ren has shown such great talent, he must not be idle any longer, and must put himself into actual combat as soon as possible. And the goalkeeper, definitely can't give it to the goalkeeper, so where does Wood go? Micromanage on the ground? Hey, Fred, you fly 5 meters to the left. This kind of scene is very funny to think about. So Lu Ren can only play chaser? Although the problem was a bit tricky, Wood didn't take it to heart. Wood, who was born in Gryffindor College, doesn't care about these details. Sign it first, and consider the position later. Maybe it will come in handy someday. This is his strategy. Come on, let me explain the rules to you. After venting his joy, Wood began to talk about some serious business. Our team trains 3 times a week. Then he talked about the rules of Quidditch: roughly 7 players per team, 3 chasers, 2 batsmen, a keeper and a seeker. Among them, the position of the seeker is the most critical. If the golden snitch is not caught, the game cannot end. The longest Quidditch match in history lasted 3 months. Outrageous. The only competitions in the Muggle world that can compete with this are probably cricket, sailing, bicycle and car rallies. Of course, the game of wits such as Go lasts for a long time. But 3 months should be able to apply for Guinness World Records. Of course, Quidditch is also a game where individual heroism is brought to the extreme. The seeker is the safflower of the team, and the other teammates are the foil, not only because they're the key to ending the game, but because catching the snitch earns you 150 points. The chaser only gets 10 points if he scores a goal, and a lead of 150 points is needed to close the gap between the seekers. To sum it up, seekers catch snitches, chasers score with quaffles. Thank you for your votes and favorites. End of this chapter. Chapter 111. In short, it is very unreliable. Regarding the rules of Quidditch, Lou Ren has nothing to complain about. The Quidditch pitch is an oval field 500 feet long and 180 feet wide, with a total area of more than 400 square meters, and the golden snitch is only the size of a walnut, referring to the edible walnut. Finding a golden snitch in this kind of venue is tantamount to finding a needle in a haystack. With such a high difficulty, it is understandable that the snitch scored a lot. Influenced by movies and novels, everyone thinks that catching a snitch is easy, but it is not. In professional games, there are often days-long contests. Hogwarts, which ends in a short time, is a special case. Lou Ren even suspects that Hogwarts snitches have been passively manipulated, and may have cut-off coefficients such as flying speed, otherwise it is unreasonable that each time it takes less than half a day it's game over. Senior Wood talked about the composition of the team, then introduced the 3 types of balls, and then started training Harry. He didn't use the real snitch. It'd be more fun to get lost, and he pulled out a bag of golf balls and flew into the air with Harry. Wood threw golf balls in all directions, and Harry caught them all. After Harry was Lou Ren's training, Harry returned to the ground and lent Lou Ren the Nimbus 2000. Lou Ren and Wood flew into the air together, and Wood released the shackles of the bludger, allowing Lou Ren to try to hit the ball in a specific direction, and try to protect Wood on the side as much as possible. Lou Ren performed worse than Harry. This kind of playing with a stick always made him associate with baseball, but he really didn't know anything about baseball. If the bludger hadn't been much bigger than a baseball, almost the size of a football, he and Wood would have been sieved. Even so, he missed several times. Fortunately, Wood's armor spell was applied in time, otherwise he might fall off the broom directly after being hit like this. In the end, they practiced until it was completely dark. Lou Ren was too tired to join the team. There are 3 times a week for this intensity of training. But Wood is undoubtedly extremely satisfied. This year's Quidditch Cup will definitely be engraved with our names. Victory belongs to Gryffindor. I'm already thinking about the font I choose for engraving. Several hours of training, the excitement in Wood's heart did not fade, and he happily set up a small flag for himself. In a blink of an eye it was the second day when Lou Ren woke up in the morning. He even thought, has his sleep time been deleted? I went to bed early enough yesterday, but this morning I still feel like I didn't get enough sleep. Today is Wednesday, and there is an herbalism class, 2 defense against the dark arts classes and an astronomy class. One of the courses that all new students really look forward to is defense against the dark arts. After all, with the 3 evil and mysterious words of black magic, it always arouses endless curiosity. And Professor Quirinus Quirrell has a big gimmick. Quirrell's life, before 1991, was the real protagonist template. He graduated from Ravenclaw, joined Hogwarts early and became a professor, and he's most likely the 2nd youngest professor. No one was younger than Snape, that jerk. And unlike other people's impressions, his first job was not a professor of defense against the dark arts, but a Muggle researcher, so his professorship did not come from defense against the dark arts. Instead, he was a serious professor who was indistinguishable from Snape and the others. Quirrell's theoretical knowledge is very solid, but he still hopes to get first-hand practical experience. This is the unity of knowledge and action, very valuable quality. Talented and very handsome Quirrell. When Tom missed his life, he became wearing a big turban every day. One eye kept twitching, his voice stuttered, and he looked like he was about to faint all day long. It looks like a ghost. These symptoms should come from Voldemort's parasitism, which caused great damage to Quirrell's body and spirit, and a genius fell away. But it deserves it. Quirrell was bewitched by Voldemort and took the initiative to let him parasitize. At that time, Voldemort could only parasitize on small rodents. A man bewitched by mice. Of course, there are also rumors that he was parasitic and controlled in order to kill Voldemort. There is no reliable source for this statement. Judging from his performance later, either he is a patient of Stockholm Syndrome, or he is Voldemort's believer. Whatever Professor Quirrell had in mind, his first class for Gryffindor freshmen had been a complete joke. No one could understand why his classroom was filled with the smell of garlic. The students thought it was to drive away the vampires he met in Romania, and Quirrell was afraid that the vampires would come to Hogwarts to take revenge on him. Lou Ren scoffed at this idea. Why do people still think that vampires are afraid of garlic in the magical world? Perhaps for vampires, having garlic is like finding a bowl of noodles with goat's milk cheese. It's very disgusting, but you can still eat it and spit it out. But what made Lou Ren even more curious was how Voldemort felt at the back of Quirrell's head, surrounded by the smell of garlic every day, and wrapped tightly in multiple layers of scarves. Voldemort couldn't breathe at all. Could it be that this painful experience made him lose his nose after resurrection in the future? After all, in the first film, Voldemort's nose is still very straight. Quirrell also stated that his large scarf was a gift he got after helping an African prince get rid of the stalking zombies. Hearing this, Lou Ren called my good guy, blessings from the African chief. As a result, when Seamus Finnegan asked Professor Quirrell how to defeat the reanimated zombies, the professor's face was as red as Kong Yiji. He mumbled about the weather, and there was a cheerful atmosphere in the classroom. This class on defense against the dark arts is the same as crosstalk, and the scene turned out to be the main theme for the next 2 years. Take a look at this year's and future defense against the dark arts: teachers, insiders, liars, normal good teachers, insiders, bureaucrats, and Death Eaters. Among these people, I am afraid that only Lu Ping took classes seriously in the first 3 years. Of course, the quality of teaching in the 4th and 6th grades is still very good. Although Little Crouch is an insider, he is still a strong man comparable to Jin, and his level is still there. Snape is even the most powerful among the professors. In the 7th grade, the aftermath of his fight with McGonagall was able to blow away the defense against the dark arts professors, the Carlo brothers and sisters. The little wizards can still do things under this level of teaching. In the 5th grade, their combat effectiveness was acceptable. In the 7th grade, they were able to fight Death Eaters back and forth. This can be said to be extraordinary talent. Think again that this kind of annual throwing professor has been going on for decades. It seems that the actual combat abilities of little wizards really have nothing to do with defense against the dark arts. The editor told me that it will be on the shelves next Friday. Thank you for your continued support. End of this chapter. Chapter 112, Late Night Astronomy Class. Every Wednesday night, Lou Ren and the others have astronomy class. This subject is a core subject taught at Hogwarts, meaning it is compulsory until 5th year. Astronomy is the study of the orbits of the stars and planets, but in this course students don't need to use any practical magic. The professor of astronomy is Aurora Sinista, a beautiful black witch. The class is held in the Astronomy Tower, which is also the tallest tower in Hogwarts. Due to the cancellation of the class last week, it was the first time for Lou Ren to come to this tower. Thanks to the movie cuts, the astronomy class has a pitifully small number of roles in the 7 movies, and the history of magic, Muggle studies, and digital divination are almost as good as it, and everyone's impression of the astronomical tower probably comes from the last clip of the 6th movie. Stepping into the tower, Lou Ren felt a little emotional. If he doesn't show up, Dumbledore will die here 6 years later, and Grindelwald will die silently and Nuremberg in another year. The outer wall of the tower is the kind of gray-yellow brick in the wide of Hogwarts Castle, while the interior is covered with the same wooden floor as the plank road and tourist attractions. Going around several spiraling stairs and coming to the top floor of the tower, you will find that the top of the tower is divided into 2 parts. There are many astronomical instruments piled up in the lower part. Lou Ren looked at the old traces and dust on it, and felt that he should not use them in a short time. There are also desks in the room, and Professor Sinista's class is on the lower half floor. The upper part is quite open. First of all, there are no windows at all, and only a few columns supporting the top of the tower are left on the wall. There is nothing between the pillars. This design is convenient for little wizards to watch the sky from here at night. When Lou Ren and the others arrived, Professor Sinista was already waiting in the tower. Seeing that everyone was here, she waved her magic wand lightly, and all the candles and braziers in the classroom burned, making the whole classroom brighter. I am Aurora Sinista, and I will teach you some basic knowledge of astronomy in the next 5 years. I sincerely hope that you can pass the AL exam, and then continue to study this profound subject in the 6th and 7th years subject. Sinistra's voice was nice, although she had a little French accent, it was very crisp. We don't need silly wand waving here. Then why did you wave it just now? Perhaps because of being infected by Ren. Ron also became fond of complaining, and he muttered in a low voice. 5 points deducted from Gryffindor. Next time I hear you argue, I'll ask you out. Sinistra suddenly interrupted the course introduction. Ron looked like he was being fed a fly, but he really didn't dare to talk anymore. This teacher's hearing is very keen. Ren sighed, but with Ron's lessons learned from the past, he only dared to keep the sentence in his stomach. Put away your wands, we only need to use the telescope to observe the starry sky, and I will teach you the trajectories of different stars and planets in the next 5 years. At that time, you will discover the depth and mystery of this universe. You're going to love it. If one had to choose which Hogwarts class was most similar to Muggle classes, then Ren would vote for the astronomy class. This subject is not fundamentally different from Muggle astronomy, except that the equipment lags far behind the non-magical world. However, it should be noted that astronomy is divided into 2 branches, observational astronomy and theoretical astronomy. Observational astronomy focuses on obtaining observational data of celestial bodies, and then analyzes them based on basic physical principles. Theoretical astronomy develops computer models and analytical models for analyzing celestial phenomena. There is no doubt that astronomy in the wizarding world belongs to observational astronomy before the 5th grade. This course tends to be in the field of popular science. After the 5th grade, this course will be related to astrology and divination. However, what Professor Sinistra said next made Ren a little interested in this subject. Perhaps all of you here have Muggle-born wizards. I hope they don't confuse Muggle astronomy with wizarding astronomy. There are some differences between the two, such as the planets in the solar system. Muggles generally believe that there are 9 planets, but the wizarding world only recognizes 8 of them. Ren! Exclamation mark. Fuck, this was the first time he'd seen the wizarding world surpass the non-magical world in the field of science. In the 20s, people still generally believed that there were 9 planets in the solar system. It was not until 90 that the Muggles officially downgraded Pluto to a dwarf planet. As a result, wizards have already discovered this thing? There is a rigorous scientific basis for Muggles to downgrade Pluto to become a planet. 3 conditions need to be met. 1. It revolves around a star, the Sun in the solar system, in an approximately circular orbit. 2. The mass is large enough to make the celestial body into a spherical shape by its own gravity. 3. Able to gradually clear other objects near its orbit. Pluto is planted on 3, and of course 2 is not very close. It is only 1/3 the size of the Moon, and only 1/6 the mass of the Moon. The key problem is that Pluto cannot clear its orbit of other objects, and it forms a binary system with its own planet Karen. This is the main reason it was downgraded. What about the wizarding world? Ren raised his hand to ask this question. Professor Sinistra glanced at him. The predecessors in the magic world learned that by analyzing the few words left by the ancient wizards, some divination omens can be obtained by calculating the trajectory of each planet. But the calculation results are always different from the actual ones. The gap. Later we found that the correct answer could be obtained by simply removing Pluto, so the predecessors expelled Pluto from the planets. Okay, I used this example to prove the difference in astronomy between us and Muggles. You can go to the divination class to learn specific knowledge. Let's stop talking about these gossips. What I want to teach you as the first lesson today is something about the planet beneath our feet. It turned out that it was related to divination, and Ren roughly understood the reason. The big wizard among the wizards found that although this thing looks like a planet, bringing it into the calculation will always interfere with the calculation results, so he kicked it out of the planetary group of the solar system. The wizarding world can always surprise you. Ren was delighted from the bottom of his heart. This kind of experience of gradually unveiling a mysterious and unknown world is always exciting. This is what drives him to keep going. Side note, speaking of Grindelwald's death, I think this is where the Harry Potter directors made a terrible adaptation. In the movie, Grindelwald actually quickly told Voldemort the whereabouts of the Elder Wand! Exclamation mark. That dialogue lowered Grindelwald's compulsion. Look at the original text. Here you come. I thought you would come one day, but your trip is meaningless because I never had it. Kill it, Voldemort. I'm glad to die, but my death won't get you what you want. There are many things you won't understand. Kill me, you won't win, you can't win, that one will never be yours and never will be. Watch the movie again. Of course the Elder Wand is with him. Dumbledore. I really don't want to put the whole dialogue up. If you want to watch the original video, go to Station BH 7, 1 hour and 59 minutes. G. Give an inappropriate example. This adaptation directly pulled Grindelwald from the rank of hero to the level of Gaddafi. What does the passage before his death in the movie express? Revenge on Dumbledore or trying to survive? End of this chapter. Chapter 113. Next, Professor Sinistra gave a lesson to the young wizards. Today, she mainly talked about the position of the Earth in the solar system and the explanation of some proper nouns. Before get out of class, she also assigned a homework for the little wizards to look up the data by themselves to describe the position of the sun in the sky in a year. There is no need to rush to answer this question. It is enough to submit the argument after Christmas. Submitting in the form of group cooperation is allowed. The little wizards all looked confused. Isn't the sun on top of their heads? How would you describe its location? But since it's due after Christmas, don't worry, it's only September. The big deal is to find a young lady from Ravenclaw to do it together. The ideas of little lions are always so cute. Seeing that even Hermione fell into confusion, Luren couldn't help sighing. This question is indeed beyond the outline. He learned this topic when he was studying photovoltaic cells when he was in college, but after so many years, he has already paid back the capital with interest to the teacher. He only had a vague impression. It seems to be using the yellow-red angle. Is it the yellow-red angle or the effective angle? Luren muttered a few words in a low voice. It's really annoying. In the previous life, there were special calculators to calculate these data. For example, some websites provided sun position calculators for free, but now they have to be calculated by hand. What's even more frightening is that if you push it yourself, the formulas involved will have to be calculated by hand. Ordinary calculators cannot be used at Hogwarts. It seems that a mechanical calculator must be brought here, Luren thought. Electronic equipment must not be used at Hogwarts, but purely mechanical equipment is no problem. The peak of the development of mechanical calculators was in the 1970s, not more than 20 years from now, and you can still find them if you search for them in the non-magic world. Don't underestimate mechanical calculators. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are not a problem, and some can take square roots. With this, the calculations in astronomy class can be much easier. However, Luren hoped from the bottom of his heart that these calculations would not be involved in the future. Otherwise, the easiest thing is to let you calculate how much sin 7 degrees is equal to, and all the little wizards present will have to stop. Hermione heard Luren's soliloquy, and she frowned tightly, with a look of incredulity on her face. Luren, do you know how to do the question left by the professor? I know the general steps, but I need to check the information, Luren said frankly, and the amount of calculation is huge. I'm afraid it will be very troublesome. Hermione raised her eyebrows, tapped her fingers on the table a few times. She hesitated for a moment. Can we do it together? She suddenly whispered such a sentence. At this time, Luren was searching for knowledge from more than 10 years ago in his stomach, and he didn't hear Hermione's whisper at all. He subconsciously raised his head and asked, "Sorry, what did you say?" "I want to do it with you. Can I do it?" Hermione also straightened her mind. People are not born with knowledge, so who can be free from confusion? If you are confused and don't follow the teacher, you are confused, and you will never understand it. Of course, Hermione didn't know this ancient text, but she understood the truth in it. Study well, don't be shabby. Oh, you want to do that with me? Luren reacted. Yes, it would be great if I could do that with you. If you must do it with other people, then Hermione is definitely the perfect object, and it must be very cool to do it with her at this time. Harry and Ron also noticed that the two top students next to them seemed to have reached some kind of special friendship deal, and as ordinary students, they also made a decision in an instant. In school, if you want to get along, you must have the ability. This kind of ability is either reflected in academic ability or in interpersonal communication ability, that is, the ability to hug the thigh. And the two thickest thighs in the class are already entangled, so in this case, it is natural to hurry up. This kind of pendant position on the thigh is as rare as a Shanghai brand. Ron and Harry showed the same spirit as the South Vietnamese in Saigon in 1975 to snatch air tickets to other countries, and quickly booked the members of the group. Naturally, Luren readily agreed. With Hermione in the team, the project could be completed steadily, so it would not be a problem to bring two acquaintances along. So 3 boys and 1 girl decided to do it together. At this time, Lavender also appeared next to Luren, and asked casually, "Can you add me? I want to do it with you too." Luren thought about it and decided to decline her. So he said, "No. The group is full." Lavender. There is one thing to say, indeed, although Professor Sinista did not specify the number of people in the group of 4 already exceeded the limit. With Lavender added, will her friend Parvati Patil be added? That's a group of 6. You might as well get the whole Gryffindor first-year team. Lavender didn't expect to be rejected at all, and he froze there. Luren apologized. "I'm sorry, our group is indeed full, I'm sorry." Lavender did not respond, and her friend Parvati rushed to drag her away. This was just a small episode, and Luren didn't take it to heart. Instead, he was discussing the project with Hermione. There was a slight disagreement within the group about when the project should start, and Hermione wanted to start as early as possible, preferably today if possible, and Luren felt that there was no rush for this thing. "Are you exaggerating now that you don't hand in things until after Christmas? And where can I find the required formula?" "Library. There is no textbook for astronomy class. The library is so big, even if Mrs. Google Pants is humanoid, it would be a big project. As for these formulas, Luren doubts that he will learn them in the following courses. So it makes perfect sense for this project to drag on for a few days." Since the astronomy class started late, it was already 9 o'clock in the evening. Naturally, we couldn't continue to wander around the campus, otherwise it would not be fun to be caught by Filch, not to mention the library, which is helpful to them, also closed. So even if you want to start working on the project, you have to wait until tomorrow. Hermione, on the other hand, has an "I'm going to die" look, as if starting a project a day late will delay the project. Luren had no choice but to coax Hermione for a long time before he believed him. Let Hermione agree to wait and see first, and wait until the class is over next week before considering whether to start the project. But he didn't keep Hermione waiting. He suggested that Hermione contact her parents, and hinted that she might have a miraculous effect. There's nothing wrong with it. The project left by Professor Sinista will only take about 5 minutes for non-magical astronomers to answer. Once the conflict within the group is resolved, the day is over. End of this chapter. Chapter 114. Are you Professor Snape or are you Professor Snape? 2 in 1. For Luren and the others, this day has come to an end. After the astronomy get out of class after class, they feel extremely tired, and they don't have the mind to do other things at all, especially study. But some people's Wednesdays don't end at all. Lavender grabbed his best friend's shoulder and kept shaking it, saying, "Why? Why did he reject me? What should I do?" Faced with the 3 consecutive broken loves of his friends, Parvati has nothing to do. "Wow, you said you have to wait for the other party to confess, but why do I feel that when he confesses, even the lettuce salad is cold? The lettuce salad is always cold." But it's really not the way to go on like this. Parvati thought that if she waited any longer, how could her best friend win over that little brat? She's obviously a girl, but she hangs out with 3 boys every day. "No, I have to help Lavender win this battle. Love is war, with me, Parvati. Lavender will never lose." Parvati made up his mind. "My mother once told me that if you want to capture a person's heart, you must capture his stomach. We can find a chance to invite Luren to dinner. Well, let's thank him for taking care of my sister. What do you think?" Parvati made a pretty solid suggestion. Lavender frowned, "But I don't know how to cook, and Luren is from the East. I don't know if he is used to British food." The corner of Parvati's mouth rose. "It's okay, I will. I am also from the East, and Luren will like our cuisine. My Cheyenne's cuisine is the best in the world." Parvati's self-confidence is already bursting. "I'll write a letter to contact my mother and ask her to send over the most authentic Cheyenne's seasoning. I guarantee that it is her local seasoning, which is absolutely authentic. Then I will present my family's ancestral recipe, and I will definitely help you catch Luren's stomach. Starting tomorrow, I will conduct special training for you, and then on Halloween, I will make you a blockbuster." Lavender was so moved that he held Parvati's hand and refused to let go, with tears in his eyes. "You are my lifelong good friend, Lavender." The two held hands, touching each other very much. They finally decided to name the action Halloween Love Battle. At this time, Luren still didn't know anything about it, and he had already fallen asleep. I often have this feeling when I go to school. After Wednesday, it will be Friday in a blink of an eye. The same was true for Luren and the others. Time passed in a trance, and now they only had 2 potions classes left in this week's class. If Merlin can fulfill one of my wishes, Then I will definitely wish for the ability to skip every Friday morning. Taking Snape's potions class is simply torture to my young mind. Fred and George are here with me. Hogwarts warned me to pay attention to this guy before, and I thought they were playing a prank again. Ron kept thinking on the way to the potions classroom. Harry gave Ron a complicated look. Since you can make a wish, why don't you just wish that you will never be made things difficult by Snape? Lou-Ren added, that's because it's beyond Merlin's ability. As for skipping Friday morning, it's too easy. Merlin only needs to make Ron unable to be woken up on Friday morning. Ron. He imagined the scene of himself skipping a whole semester of potions class, and then he shivered. It's better to have a little bit of this wish. But his mouth is still quite stubborn. Snape is a student who prefers Slytherin. Fred even concluded that in Snape's eyes, the person who whispers is the mischievous Gryffindor, and the one who shuts up and works is Gryffindor. Prepare to be naughty, Gryffindor. Lou-Ren and the others also took the potions class last week, and the experience was really not that good, or rather, poorly. Anyway, we have to be careful in this class. How are you memorizing the rules? Ron said. Fortunately, I've recited it several times and copied it several times. Would you like to test me? Hermione popped up suddenly, but Harry and the others didn't really want to hear Hermione beeping beside them, which would make them more nervous. They always felt like a waste next to the top student. Of course, with confidence, you can get rid of the feeling. A few people chatted while heading to the potions classroom. However, I think Professor Snape is just a little stricter and didn't target us. Hermione said shocking words. Hermione hasn't experienced Snape's poisonous tongue education much yet, or it's been so long since the last potions class that her memory has faded a bit. From Hermione's point of view, Snape was nothing more than a gloomy wizard who didn't like to wash his hair. It seemed that he had strict requirements in class, but he didn't bother her much other than that. Why did Ron have such a bad reputation? Wow, Ron dragged his voice out, opening his mouth exaggeratedly. Just based on your words, Snape should give you 10 points. If there's a black solid that feels like chocolate, smells like chocolate, and tastes like chocolate, then it's chocolate. A professor with a bad reputation from everyone must have something wrong with him. It should be a fact that Professor Snape loves to target Gryffindors. And I feel that even in Gryffindors, we are his favorite target. Lou-Ren glanced at the trio who were discussing heatedly, and said indifferently said. It seems so, and I don't know why. Harry recalled his experience in the first class, and couldn't help sighing. Why is there such gratuitous hatred in this world? Lou-Ren. And why? Look in the mirror and you will understand. Seeing you, Snape would think of James, and then of James taking his Lily, and then of their plowing in the bed, and the little boy in front of him who looked like James, but with Lily's eyes. Just thinking about it makes my stomach hurt. There must be such a sentence buried in Snape's heart. Obviously I came first. This kind of resentment could not be vented, and was eventually passed on to Gryffindor, the college. Of course, no one else was to blame, but Snape committed suicide himself if he hadn't added Death Eaters, if he'd recognized this feeling sooner, if he hadn't yelled that deadly line. Unfortunately, there are not so many ifs. However, maybe things will turn around, Lou-Ren said solemnly. I'll ask Principal Dumbledore if there is any potion or spell that can turn a boy into a girl. I can assure you that Harry will become Harry. In the end, Snape will definitely favor us. Harry, all this. Let me think about it. Lou-Ren? Question mark? Why are you reacting this way? Exclamation mark. Ron directly said that there is no need to consult Harry. I will learn this spell, guaranteed to make Harry look good. For the happiness of the brothers, please. Ron's well-behaved Harry bowed, and of course he got a pair of fists from Harry and a strong sentence, get out. Hermione looked at the three boys and couldn't help rolling her eyes. It's hopeless. Wait for death. Farewell. Lou-Ren still felt that the matter was not messy enough, so he decided to add fuel to the flames. Harry, really, do you want to try to grow your hair long and try traditional Scottish costumes? Harry was taken aback for a moment, and then directly punched Lou-Ren's chest with his small fist. Ron was in a daze, until Hermione explained the traditional Scottish costumes to him, and he laughed so hard that he couldn't straighten up. The three of them started fighting in the corridor, and the shadow brought by the potions class gradually disappeared. After some squabbling, Ron started to gossip again. There is another rumor from my side. It is said that Professor Snape used to be a dark wizard. At this point, Ron lowered his voice and looked around, looking a little bit wretched. Impossible. Professor Dumbledore will never allow a dark wizard to enter the school. Hermione said she believed in Professor Dumbledore. Luren, as long as you are happy. During the conversation, they arrived at the potions classroom and sat down in a relatively inconspicuous place. Hermione originally wanted to go to the first row, but was discouraged by the three together. Gradually, the classroom was filled with Gryffindor and Slytherin students. Even Slytherin students did not dare to be late for Snape's class when everyone is almost in place. It's time for class. Boom. The classroom door, which had been partially hidden, was suddenly pushed open, and a thin figure appeared at the door. Black robes, greasy hair, and his sallow cheeks were like an expressionless oil painting in the silent classrooms and empty corridors. The only sound left was the sound of him walking alone. It was Snape. His robes flowed, making him look like a bat. His eyes just glanced at the little wizards present, and they all shrank as if they had been stung. Snape strode towards the podium, while waving his wand with his left hand. The windows were slammed shut one by one, and their curtains were lowered automatically, making the already poorly lit classroom even darker. He walked to the edge of the podium, reached out and touched a thread end from nowhere, and then pulled it, and a screen similar to a PPT curtain was pulled down by him. Luren, there it is, the only teacher at Hogwarts who can use PPT. I should have said in the last class that today we will examine your recitation of the rules. Snape's tone was very flat. If you can't recite it, then I believe today's potions class will definitely be good for him. Very memorable. Not even the Slytherins in the classroom were smiling anymore. From you, start. Harry was about to stand up, but the first person called was Neville Longbottom. Snape was already standing behind Neville, staring at Neville like a snake staring at its prey, and Neville also brought in a roll like a guinea pig very logically, trembling all over, unable to speak. Surprisingly, Snape didn't make any sarcasm. He just deducted 5 points from Gryffindor in a very flat manner, and then asked Neville to copy the rules 100 times and give it to him before the next class. Afterwards, Snape casually selected 2 more students, and randomly checked 2 rules. Although the 2 stuttered, they also memorized them. Sure enough, Snape put the highlight at the end. He called Harry's name, and then asked questions for 5 minutes. From recitation to application, he almost asked all the questions he could ask. Fortunately, Harry came prepared and answered all the questions. Snape looked very disappointed, ended the question resentfully, and started the class. Snape's wand emitted a faint light, and this light was projected on the large screen, forming a clear image. This is the procedure for preparing the potion today. You can prepare it according to the steps. Then, when the video finished playing, Snape shook his wand lightly again, and the key points of the experiment appeared on the screen line by line. As long as you are not hopelessly stupid, you should be able to prepare today's potion according to the steps I gave. What are you still doing? Do you have to tell me to start before you start? Luren curled his lips. If we start the experiment without your permission, you will get angry again. But it was such a small expression, but Snape also noticed it. Mr. Luren, do you have any comments? No, Professor. Luren resolutely followed his heart's choice. Snape glared at him, but didn't continue to say anything. This is the advantage of having a basic sympathy degree, and if it were any other little wizard, he might have to be sucked under the skin. But there is one thing to say, this experiment is really not difficult. Following Snape's experimental procedures, basically there will be no problems. Luren followed the steps step by step. The preparation process of the potion was very smooth. He quickly completed the preparation, put the crucible on the fire, and when the time came, the potion would be brewed naturally. Luren immediately relaxed. He began to observe the operations of the little wizards who hadn't finished the potion, and corrected them from time to time. This behavior quickly attracted Snape's attention. He narrowed his eyes slightly, and walked to Luren's side. Is your potion going to be overdone? No, Professor, I have a time. So have you got the container ready? The container has been activated. Did the last few potions cool down? Cooling. Have you written the experimental records for the 2nd, 7th, and 8th steps? It's done, Professor. Snape glanced at Luren. Although Luren's face was expressionless, he was already smiling in his heart. He was very happy, and the steps were perfect. Professor, how do you think I am doing? The 7th step, do you have a sample of the potion before adding the narcissus root? Luren, what? Snape rolled up his sleeves and hit Luren on the head. Look at the experimental steps carefully. Although Luren was stunned and speechless, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Snape's mood improved a lot. He didn't continue to mock other little wizards anymore. It seems that picking on Lu Ren is indeed a good way to have fun. End of this chapter. Chapter 115 Prefect Gemma's Battle Date. After the second potion class was over, the little wizards quietly left the potion classroom as quickly as possible. After some distance from the classroom, Ron patted Lu Ren on the back, saying that even Merlin couldn't do it, but let you do it. The organization has already decided. I will trouble you to sacrifice your ego for the sake of everyone in order to attract Snape's attention. Lu Ren, oh, I'm too hard. But at least the weekend is off to a good start. After 2 potions classes, it was a completely free afternoon and a passionate weekend, and maybe this was the end of all hardships. The arena at Hogwarts arrived as scheduled on Saturday. Although the arena occupies the venue of the Quidditch match, it will not delay the Quidditch match because the competition doesn't start until November. It's only September, and it's still early for the Quidditch match. Saturday mornings are when the arena is at its busiest. Lu Ren still led the standings, but no one dared to fight a special duel, so he was only able to play 2 matches, beating a Hufflepuff 4th year and a Ravenclaw 3rd year. Just when he was about to start the next round of matching, a butterfly slowly stopped in front of him and turned into a small note. Lu Ren opened it and glanced at it. It was indeed a challenge letter from Slytherin's Prefect Gemma. Lu Ren just said one word, climb. He waved his wand, and the note turned into a ball of flames, and then the 3rd round of matching started at the speed of light. To be honest, fighting against high-level wizards really helps to increase my strength, but before my partner was Grindelwald. So why should Lu Ren fight a losing match with a stranger? Seeing Lu Ren's reaction, Prefect Gemma sighed. She was very curious about this elementary school boy. His unrestrained imagination that day was especially precious to her. The improved version of the explosion spell really surprised her. For her, fighting against someone like Lu Ren would definitely yield a lot, so deep in her heart she was eager to fight against him once. But it seems that this elementary school boy is very stubborn, which is really a headache. Gemma rubbed her forehead, but it is true that she is too willful. Marcus, send me a letter after the arena is over. She told Marcus, who was sitting near her. She decided to give the little brother a little favor. So on the way Lu Ren and the others returned to the castle, they were blocked by Marcus. Ron and Harry pulled out their wands subconsciously, and Marcus, who had been beaten several times by Lu Ren, waved his hands quickly. Student, don't do it. The prefect asked me to give you a message. Lu Ren, I won't listen. Marcus. No, I'm doing this for your own good. As long as you can duel with Prefect Gemma once, the benefits will be great. The prefect said that as long as you have a duel with her, regardless of whether you win or lose, she will unconditionally teach you a kind of magic she knows. If you want, you can have a duel at the astronomy tower at midnight today. Marcus finished after speaking. He quickly turned and left. Lu Ren's heart skipped a beat. Gemma knows a lot of magic, and the most important thing is, if you choose one, you can even learn that kind of summoning contract. In that case, you can go there. Cool. Ron looked excited. This is a private duel. Can we go and watch? From Ron's understanding, Lu Ren's strength is stronger than most 7th graders, so this duel must be. It represents a very high level, so it should not be missed. Lu Ren didn't care about that. If you want to see it, go and watch it. Anyway, it has nothing to do with me. I just go to sign in and get a spell and come back. Sorry, gentlemen, to excuse me. Hermione interrupted Ron suddenly. Hermione said to Lu Ren with a serious face, I accidentally overheard what you and Marcus said. Lu Ren felt his head start to hurt, and Ron also covered his forehead. First of all, private duels are strictly prohibited in the school. It's too dangerous. You have seen Gemma's curse, you may really die. Second, there is a night curfew. How dare you wander around outside? If you are caught, Gryffindor's existing points are not enough for you to deduct. It's really selfish of you to do so. Lu Ren stretched out his index finger and nodded Hermione's head. Please forgive my selfishness, Hermione. Then he walked away quickly. Today he had to go to the appointment anyway. The summoning contract was so attractive to him, he was not even sure if Dumbledore and Grindelwald would be this magic curse. Lu Ren lay on the bed early tonight, closing his eyes and resting his mind, but he opened them later, because he was really worried that he would fall asleep inadvertently. That would be too funny. Through the slight snoring, he knew that Dean and the others had fallen asleep. When the time was almost up, he turned over and sat up, and there were rustling sounds from the beds of Harry and Ron across the way. Lu Ren lifted the curtain of the bed and saw that Harry and Ron were getting ready. He didn't talk to them, just put on his clothes, took his gourd, and tiptoed out of the bedroom. They walked down the spiral staircase and entered the common room. It was almost midnight at this time, and the flame in the fireplace was basically extinguished, leaving only some charcoal still glowing dark red. The originally bustling lounge had fallen into silence, and Luren and the others could only see the general position of the armchairs through the faint peripheral vision of a charcoal fire. They walked cautiously around the armchairs and walked to the portrait hole, when suddenly one of the chairs spoke. "You really let me down, Luren. I thought you could restrain yourself." Puff. A flame lit up and flew into the fireplace. The light of the fire allowed Luren to see clearly what was in front of him. It was Hermione in a striped dressing gown. Judging from her expression and tone, she was not very happy. "Luren, so good at hiding, it's a pity not to go to South Vietnam to develop." "Hermione? What does this have to do with South Vietnam?" Her train of thought was interrupted. "Don't stop us if you don't want to go." Ron was a little annoyed. "You should be sleeping." "I can't sleep. You should thank me, there should be Percy waiting here." Hermione shot back mercilessly. Luren said that even if he deducted, points from Gryffindor today, it would not stop his determination to go to the appointment. It was only, points, and he could earn it back if he deducted it, but Gemma is about to graduate. This may be the only chance in his life to experience the summoning spell. If he misses this, he will regret it for the rest of his life. "Let's go." He hardened his mind and ignored Hermione. "If something goes wrong, I will take full responsibility, and I will take full responsibility." Then he pushed the fat lady's portrait away and climbed out. Harry and Ron followed. Hermione was like an angry tabby cat. She quickly followed Ron, who was at the end, and grabbed him. "You guys come back to me. It's fine for Luren to go. Why do you and Harry want to watch the fun?" Ron climbed so fast that he dragged Hermione out all of a sudden, and the two of them fell to the ground together. "It hurts." Ron rubbed his ass. At this time, the fat lady's portrait had automatically closed. Unfortunately, the fat lady actually went out to visit tonight. Hermione stared blankly at the empty portrait. This was the first time in her life that she saw Dorlock run away by herself. "Hermione, I have never seen this scene." "Ahem, it's already here, why don't you go and see it with us?" "I have a hunch that the duel tonight will be very exciting." Luren used a forbidden technique from the East on Hermione. "Come all come. Use this trip to get people to do something with you reluctantly." The forbidden techniques that go with it include, he's a New Year's Eve and he's still a child. Big Chinese New Year can delay the upcoming punishment after being used, while he's still a child has a high probability of exempting the perpetrator from punishment. Hermione hesitated for a moment, and then obediently accepted the arrangement of fate under the bewitchment of the Eastern forbidden technique. "If Filch finds out about us, I'll tell him the truth, and this will reduce the number of people making mistakes." It's unbelievable. This is definitely against the school rules, and there are more than one. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Fighting with Immortals. Luren and the others walked through the dark corridor, walk up the stairs one floor after another, and finally reached the top of the astronomy tower. At this moment, Gemma was already waiting for him at the top of the tower, with her back to the exit of the stairs, staring at the moon in a daze. The moonlight shone on the witch's hair, making her look as if she had silver hair. "You came." "I am coming." "You came later than I thought." "I encountered a little trouble on the road." Hermione glared at Luren when she said this. She reached out and poked Luren's waist. Luren couldn't help making a strange sound. "Gemma." "Luren." The atmosphere of the decisive battle at the top of the Forbidden City was gone. There is a bit more comedy in the air 1 minute, even if it is serious for 1 minute. "Why do you pull your hips every time you are serious for less than 1 minute?" Luren roared in his heart. "Hermione, don't you know how to look at the air?" Exclamation mark. Gemma trembled slightly, and she was also trying to hold back her laughter. If she laughed again at this time, the atmosphere of the duel would be gone. "Come on." She turned her head suddenly. The acacia wood wand trembled slightly. A ray of light appeared in the night sky, and then sank into the floor. "Close your ears and listen. Let go, no one will hear you." Her wand twirled in the air, and 3 or 4 red lights shot towards Luren. Luren took out his wand with his right hand, and raised the gourd with his left hand. A sand wall appeared between him and Gemma, stopping all 4 spells, and the sand wall was directly smashed. Accompanied by the splash of sand, a crescent-like spell went straight to Gemma. Gemma didn't move at all. She waved her hand first, a ring on her hand lit up, and Luren's explosive spell dissipated in the air, and then she tapped the other hand holding the wand on the scattered sand on the ground. The sand turned into butterflies, flying towards Luren. Quickly snort, "Wanna beat me with my sand?" Dreaming. Luren raised his hand again, more sand came towards the butterflies, and then swallowed them all. At the same time, Luren still fired a few explosive spells, just to disturb Gemma. Orn. The sand turned into spikes and shot towards Gemma together with the explosive spell. Gemma smiled slightly, and the spikes turned suddenly. Some of them collided with the explosive spell, blasting the sky into dust, while others turned their heads and shot at Luren. Luren's pupils shrank, and he quickly rolled sideways, avoiding the sharp shooting. The spikes fell to the ground, piercing the ground with small pits. At this time, the 3 of Ron had already hid in the corner, trying to shrink their bodies so as not to be hit by the aftermath. Luren was already at a disadvantage. Gemma's wand was held high above her head, and spells were shot out like machine guns, blasting the ground into potholes. Luren could only dodge in embarrassment. Confringo maximal. Luren found an opportunity, formed a shield from the remaining sand, blocked it in front of him, and then fired a new magic spell that he had researched, a thunderbolt explosion. The magic power leaked out like flowing water, and gathered at the tip of the wand to form a continuous white light. The light quickly extended, and soon became several meters long. Wherever it passed, it was invincible. After hitting several spells of Gemma, only the sound of cracking was immediately annihilated. Gemma raised her eyebrows. Sure enough, there was a surprise. She also raised her wand, and a purple light came out, which collided with Luren's white light, and the sound of crackling was heard all of a sudden, as if 2 electric currents came into contact. For a while, the scene was deadlocked. Luren's face turned red slightly. This kind of opposition was too bad for him, and it was impossible for him to sustain his magic power. This is a war of attrition. He tried his best to condense the sand into a small pellet, and then shot towards Gemma. When the pellet touched her body, the necklace around her neck lit up, and then the pellet shattered up. "Fuck, can you be a little more sloppy?" Gemma began to chant. Luren could tell that she was calling her Silver Dragon. Never let her succeed. He directly interrupted his spell, and then rolled to the side. Almost instantly, the purple light swallowed the remaining white light and swept towards Luren. Luren didn't care about putting out the fire, and rushed towards Gemma. At the same time, large and small sand shields appeared in front of him, and at the same time, a few explosive curses appeared randomly from the wand, intending to interfere with Gemma. As the sand shields were broken one by one by the spell, Luren also approached Gemma. Luren strengthened himself and rushed in front of Gemma. Gemma could only interrupt the call and wanted to step back to increase the distance. Unexpectedly, Luren yelled "Jer" again. The grass grew straight out, entangled Gemma's ankle, and Luren's face turned pale all of a sudden. This level of growth almost drained his magic power. But as long as she gets close to Headhammer, she will lose her ability to resist. This was Luren's last resort. The grass is very fragile, and it only blocked Gemma a little bit, making her stunned, but it was enough. She has already entered Luren's attack range, and she is about to succeed. Gemma raised her elbow and slammed down, hitting the back of Luren's head. Bang! Luren was interrupted from casting a spell and fell to the ground. Victory and defeat. A resurrection spell fell on him, quickly repairing the damage he just suffered. Gemma waved her hand at the same time, extinguishing the flame on Luren's robe. After a while, Luren stood up holding the back of his head. "It really hurts. You played well." Gemma praised Luren, but Luren felt that it was more like a mockery. "I thought you would say, 'My magic will tear you to pieces.'" Luren muttered, "Teach me how to sign a contract with magical animals." Gemma showed a satisfied look. "I knew you wanted to learn this." She snapped her fingers, and a roll of parchment and a papyrus scroll appeared in her hand, and she handed the 2 things to Luren. "The papyrus is the original spell, and the parchment is my translation and learning experience. I think you should be able to learn it after reading it. I'll go first. Goodbye, little brother." After speaking, she waved her magic wand to restore the roof to its original state, then she jumped down from the tower and drifted away slowly with the wind. Ron and the others had already run out from the corner and gathered next to Luren. "Ron, who had witnessed the whole process of the battle, had only one word left in his mouth: awesome. It's really handsome. Harry also echoed. Go back quickly. Hermione urged. If Filch catches you, it's over. Okay. Lou Ren followed suit, put the sand back into the gourd, and planned to walk down the stairs, but just as he reached the stairs, he suddenly reached out and blocked the three people behind him. End of this chapter. Chapter 117. This might be destiny. He covered Ron's mouth, who was about to ask. Lou Ren pointed to the downstairs lightly, then shook his head. Harry and the others also closed their mouths and listened attentively. There were faint sounds from downstairs, deliberately lowered footsteps and the slight, slow creaking of planks. From the sound of footsteps, one can probably guess that a person is creeping up to the top of the tower. So the question is, which of the following options will make such an action? A professor who wants to come to the roof at night to blow some air. B couples who come to the astronomy tower at night to talk about love. C Filch who came to the astronomy tower to catch people. It took Lou Ren and the others about 0.1 second to rule out the first two options. Harry's face turned pale all of a sudden, and Hermione looked like she was about to faint. Lou Ren signaled them to keep quiet, and then tiptoedly led them to the edge of the astronomical tower. He glanced down. Well, he can jump. If you jump, I will too. He lowered his voice and said to the three people around him at the same time. He poured out a large pool of sand, which condensed into a large sand table. He stood up with the three of them, and then the sand table floated up unsteadily. The sand table slowly floated down from the astronomical tower with four people at an uncomfortably fast speed. Ron looked anxiously. Brother, can you hurry up? Lou Ren gritted his teeth. Beads of sweat came out of his head. You said light, very heavy. The weight of the four people plus the sand already exceeded, caddies, and it was very difficult to move on weekdays, not to mention that Lou Ren had just experienced a fierce battle and his magic power was on the verge of exhaustion. However, Lou Ren moved down obliquely very carefully, and soon the sand table entered the blind spot of the astronomy tower. Even if Filch poked his head out from the side of the tower, he couldn't see them. The three breathed a sigh of relief, but Lou Ren's face became paler and paler. He miscalculated the consumption speed of magic power. He originally thought that increasing the weight of three people would just multiply the consumption of mana by 3, but Ron was too heavy. Oh no, the weight increased, and the difficulty of control was also greatly increased, resulting in increased mana consumption. So there is a high probability that the magic power is not enough for this group of people to float to the ground together. Very well, free fall from high altitude. The four of you will soon find me and you and me. Lou Ren's forehead began to sweat. Luckily, there is no such thing as an absolute path. Lou Ren saw a small open window on the castle, and quickly manipulated the sand table to float over, and then the four of them went in one by one. Lou Ren heaved a sigh of relief, wiped the sweat off his head. Take care here first. He felt someone tugging at the hem of his shirt, and there was a familiar stench in the air. He looked up, and there was only one poem to describe this situation. In this store last week and today, human faces and dog heads complement each other. In red, the human face is gone and returned today, but the dog's head is still drooling. This is fate. Lou Ren felt a little emotional, but he didn't feel any fear. Looking at this big dog with 3 heads, Lou Ren just wanted to say that things are impermanent. 3 pairs of rolling eyes stared at him, and the saliva was dripping from the yellowed canines like sticky strings. Woof. Why are you? Woof. Why is it always you? Lu Wei seemed to want to exchange pleasantries. They backed away slowly, step by step, and then touched the doorknob. It was locked. Hermione took out her wand. Allahu. She quickly cast a lock-unlocking spell. Thank God, someone will unlock the lock this time. And then the 4 of them rushed out at the speed of light, and Lu Ren directly closed the door with his backhand. It automatically locks with a click. Then there was a muffled sound, and it sounded like Lu Wei, who wanted to put the little wizards in his stomach to warm his body, hit the door panel. The 4 calmed down in the corridor, and then they ran away, running all the way to the portrait of the fat lady in Gryffindor Tower before stopping. What about Filch? What about confinement? What about deducting points? In the eyes of Harry and the others, they are not important anymore. It wasn't until they ran wildly for a while that they calmed down. My heart beat faster, but my mind calmed down. Where did you go? The fat lady looked curious. At this time, her face was full of alcohol, and it seemed that she had just finished drinking. Hermione was furious. We still want to ask you. Where have you been? I went to drink with you daily. The fat lady said drunkenly. Password. Pig nose. The portraits spun to open the entrance, and when they got in, they could still hear the fat lady muttering, "Didn't your teacher teach you not to use interrogative sentences to answer interrogative sentences?" Everyone sat slumped in the armchairs, and no one spoke for a long time. "I don't understand why anyone would have a three-headed dog in school." Ron broke the silence after a while. Hermione also gradually recovered. "Aren't eyes donated to those in need?" she said angrily. "Are you blind? It's standing over a trapdoor." "A trapdoor that big?" Hermione waved the arm, gestured for the size. She stood up and glared at the three boys. "I'm going to bed. I hope this is your last late night outing. You won't be so lucky next time. God knows what will happen next time, roasted by a fire dragon, or kicked out of school. I'd rather choose the former." Then she turned around and ran back to the girls' dormitory. "What? We didn't force her to go," Ron complained with wide eyes. Luren waved his hand wearily, indicating that he was also sleepy, so he went upstairs and went back to sleep. When Ron and Luren fell asleep, Harry was still awake. Fragmentary memories rolled in his mind, gradually pieced together into a complete puzzle. A hellhound guarding things, a corridor that is forbidden to enter, the best place to hide things in the world outside Hogwarts, the dirty little bag that Hagrid took him to get. He gradually straightened everything out. Filch poked his head out furtively, and then jumped out. "Haha, I got caught." Looking at the empty tower, Filch fell into a rage. Bastard, lying trash. I'm going to hang you in my office. How dare you play me?" The next day is Sunday, so don't get up too early. When the sun was high, there was a little movement in the dormitory, and Luren and the others gradually woke up. After Luren woke up, he immediately picked up Gemma's notes from the side of his pillow, and read them. As for the papyrus scroll, he decided to read it later, because the scroll must have used the characters of that era, most likely ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Luren can't understand it, why not just look at the senior sister translation? End of this chapter. Chapter 118, Summoning Words of the Summoning Spell. Luren looked at it for a while, and roughly understood the process of the summoning spell that Senior Gemma said. It was unexpectedly simple. Specifically, the summoning spell first requires a summoning word, which needs to be thought about by yourself. The senior sister made an example with her own summoning word, and marked it with a note on the side. The first sentence is, announcement, that is, to shout out to let the summoned thing listen. The second sentence is, you rely on me, and my destiny is with you. The senior sister said that this sentence means that I will support you and take care of the food, and you will come and work for me. Then came the third sentence, should be the covenant of the God who is higher than the starry sky and longer than eternity, answer my call. Gemma, well, I have a guarantor, very special. If you want to work with me, please let me know. I swear here. Gemma, this sentence is actually useless, it is just a formal term. The penultimate sentence is, I will be all the good in the world and punish all the evil. It means that I promise to do good things, in my mind, so you don't have to feel burdened, just obediently work hard for me. The last sentence is, let's be alive. Silver Dragon Liu. The summoned beast, please come out, I have something to see you. Luren. Is it so down to earth? But it's quite reasonable, and it doesn't seem difficult to change it, just find a guarantor yourself. He looked at the other steps. Although it was a bit cumbersome, it should be possible to complete it with a little effort. The main thing is to get acquainted with the summoned beast, that is, there is a so-called bond, and there is a problem of finding a guarantor god. But the senior sister also kindly explained the process of the god she invited, and Luren followed suit. That's it. After reading it, Luren hid them in his suitcase and started a new day. Time passed slowly and steadily. Maybe everything is on the right track, maybe Luren has suddenly become very busy. He has to participate in Quidditch training 3 nights a week, which makes him really want to quit the team. Besides, he has homework for each subject. So when he realized it was Halloween, he couldn't believe the fact that he had been at Hogwarts for 2 months. He now has a very regular life every week. From Monday to Friday, he attends classes according to the schedule during the day, takes care of the fields at night, and attends Quidditch training. By the way, write homework on the weekend and play the arena a few times. It is worth mentioning that the mandrake leaves they contained before are invalid, because Hermione verified that this leaf must be contained from the full moon. It almost broke them. Everything has to start over. This time they chose a full moon and filled it with new mandrake leaves. After a month, when the next full moon comes, they take the leaves out of their mouths and the moon must be visible on the day of the full moon. If there is no moon, then you have to start from scratch. They were really lucky this time, and the moon was high that night. Luren and the others each prepared a small crystal medicine bottle. When the moon is full, they put the leaves in, and at the same time they fill the jars with saliva, so that the leaves are soaked in it, allowing the leaves to receive the pure moonlight. Luren and the others put a piece of their own hair and a silver teaspoon of dew into the crystal vial illuminated by the moonlight. The dew was collected in advance, and it came from a place where there was no sunlight or human contact for 7 days. This was quite simple, and they asked Hagrid to get a small bottle from the Forbidden Forest. Finally, a chrysalis of a grimace moth needs to be added to the crystal bottle, and Malfoy generously prepared a chrysalis for everyone. This completes the preparatory steps. They kept the vials of the mixture in a quiet, dark place, with absolutely no exposure to sunlight. Luren hid them in the room of response with his own hands. All that remains is to wait. They need to wait for a storm with thunder and lightning. They could no longer look at the crystal bottles until the storm came. While waiting for the storm to come, it is also necessary to point the tip of the wand to the heart every sunrise and sunset, and recite the mantra, Amato Animo Animato Animagus. This mantra must be recited every day, and cannot be missed once. In short, Luren and the others had already completed the preparatory work, and all that was left was to wait. In waiting, Halloween comes a little earlier than the storm. Every year, November 31st is Halloween, and October, Street is called All Hallows Eve, which is a traditional festival in the West. Interestingly, Halloween is more lively than Halloween, which is a bit like New Year's Eve and New Year's Day in the Central Plains. Luren and the others welcomed the first class in the morning amidst the aroma of roasted pumpkins. Professor Flitwick's charms class. Today's Professor Flitwick also announced the good news that he plans to teach little wizards to use the levitation charm. The other little wizards have been coveting this spell for a long time. Although Luren would release this spell a long time ago, he still listened to Professor Flitwick's lectures with great interest, because he would tell many interesting stories during the class. For example, very classic, the wizard Barathea said the F in the spell has an S, only to find himself lying on the floor with a bison standing on his chest. Of course, this spell has nothing to do with the levitation spell. The levitation spell is Wingardium Leviosa. There is no F in it in reality. Barathea was a French wizard with a stutter. He wanted to conjure up a mink coat for his wife, but he turned the mink vison into a bison, and succeeded in summoning a bison. Okay, everyone can try it. Don't forget that subtle wrist movement, swipe and shake. Professor Flitwick stood on a pile of books and said in a shrill voice. He divided the class into 2 groups for training. Harry's partner was Luren, and Hermione's partner was Ron. Although Luren has always been familiar with the floating spell, other little wizards are not like him. Harry flicked and repeated countless times, but the feather was still lying motionless on the table. This feather is heavier than Mount Tai at this time. Occasionally, the feathers fluttered slightly, but it was just the wind brought by the wand. In this case, Luren's behavior of making feathers fly with a single finger made people's blood pressure rise. Seamus next door slapped the feathers on fire in extreme anger, causing a little confusion. Ron, Wingardium Leviosa. Feather is like a college student on Sunday morning, lying on the table with no intention of getting up. Hermione corrected unceremoniously, your spell is wrong, it's Wingardium Leviosa. The sentence must be clear. Luren, please show him. Luren, Wingardium Leviosa. Then the wand pointed at the feather, and the feather flew up. Hermione, hi, you didn't float it with a spell. Luren really did a trick. He directly lifted the feathers with his magic power, and it was just the same goal by different routes. End of this chapter, chapter 119. Available today, updated at, PM. Not much to say. Let's talk about the rules of adding more. 3,700 words will be updated first, then my current collection is 20. Please don't laugh at it. As a newbie, I don't expect too much. The first order is 1 to 180, and then wipe a 0. 31st order on this basis, every 24 more, add 1 more. The first subscription refers to the subscription of chapter 1 within, hours after it goes on sale. Then there is the average order, and the average order also starts from 180, and every 30 more, add 1 more. Average subscription is an average subscription. If you can get me a 500 average subscription, then I will directly add 10 updates on the basis of all the updates. Please subscribe. A good book-to-book ratio is really important to me. After talking about the rules of adding more, the following is a thank you. First of all, thanks to all readers. I often think, what am I writing for? Later, I realized that being able to see the comments, and comments, talks, Sent by you every day is my greatest source of happiness and motivation. I see everyone's comments, recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, and rewards. Thank you all. The joy of writing a book lies in the fact that someone reads it, and that someone gets their memes. Every word of your complaints makes me happy from the bottom of my heart. Second, I would like to thank two predecessors, Hot Pot Ju and Lao Wen. One of them told me about the experience of writing HP fans, and the other has been encouraging me. Although it may be strange to use this word here, Lao Wen and I really can be said to be in love with each other. The two hugged each other to keep warm, cheered each other up, and encouraged each other. It was my luck to know him. Third, I would like to thank my editor Pengley. Without him, I would not even be able to sign the contract. Think about it, the first testimonial is the final testimonial. That may be the real despair, but fortunately he has taken a fancy to me. Otherwise, I guess I haven't signed a contract yet. He helped me a lot, cheered me up and supported me, and many times his words gave me the courage to keep going. Really, thank you Dada. I hope Dada can be my editor all the time. It is really my luck to be favored by Dada. In fact, when I write this testimonial, I feel quite heavy, to be honest. The performance of this book is not good, and the 3700 collection is about to hit the shelves, which is not as good as the masters of the same period. Of course, I can blame the unpopular HP theme, and I only recommended it once, but as a newcomer's first book, there are indeed many deficiencies in writing, and I also lack the necessary experience. Facing the unknown, I only have panic and fear in my heart. There are too many unfavorable factors, but I finally survived and reached the day when it was put on the shelves. This book basically ran naked all the way, signed a contract with, words, and only got a round of recommendations before nothing else. In fact, the mentality is very explosive. Seeing other people get recommended, promoted, and take off, and I have nothing, I feel very, very uncomfortable. It is a lie to say that you maintain a normal mind. It would be a lie to say that the first book focuses on participation. I'm sick to death. I often think, just cut it. Maybe not many people are reading the testimonials I wrote. Wouldn't it be nice to write about a popular topic? But no, I'm not one of those professional writers who cut a book straight away with almost unscrupulous grades. I can't, because I still have readers who support me. I have a dream. I want to tell a story, and I don't want to be a eunuch. This book is like my son. How can I let my son be a eunuch? So please subscribe. Let me see your existence. You are the driving force for me to write down. I can't remember where I saw it. Some people say that there are no HP fans that are not unfinished. Then I want to say, now that you have seen it, I am confident that I can tell this story satisfactorily. Alright, I'm so excited that I'm incoherent, and what I'm saying seems to be incoherent. Cut the gossip and see you at 5 in the afternoon. Equals Greek letter omega equals Emperor Ha. End of this chapter. Chapter 120. The Cooking of Gangs, River, Water and Love. Please subscribe. After the charms get out of class, there will be another history of magic class, and it will be lunchtime. On the way to the cafeteria, Lu Ren was stopped by Parvati and Lavender, both first-year freshmen, and Parvati's sister Padma was with him. They explained their intentions to Lu Ren. Lu Ren was shocked to learn that he was being invited to dinner. At first he refused, because Parvati was from Cheyenne-Sioux, and when he thought of Cheyenne-Sioux cuisine, he instinctively wanted to refuse. But then I considered that the Parvati family had already moved to the UK, and Padma was still in the same group as me, so it was not very easy to refuse. If you really refuse, how can you get along in a friendly manner in the group? He had no choice but to bite the bullet and accept the invitation, but he also took the three of Harry with him. Several people went to the outside of the castle together, and Parvati was preparing cooking utensils outside. This is not surprising. In order to save crystals, many little wizards would go out to cook for themselves at noon. It's been 2 months since the new rules came out, and the young wizards are gradually getting used to this kind of life. Clutched tightly in the sleeve of Lavender's robes was a crystal vial containing a bottle of river water. She remembered what Parvati said to her. This is the water taken from the holy river in her hometown. The water of this river is also of great origin. Wrong. So the whole river is holy water. It is said that mortals can wash away the sins of life after drinking it, and couples can obtain eternal love after drinking it. Lavender believed it. She had no doubts about it. In a while, she will personally cook with this bottle of precious holy water, and then feed it to Lu Ren to obtain a love affair that transcends time and space. As for Hermione, she will generously invite her at the wedding and when the child is full moon. At that time, she could only cry and shout, "Obviously I came first." Thinking of this, The corners of Lavender's mouth rose crazily. Very well, everything is ready, just waiting for me to show off. Lavender secretly thought that in order to ensure the authenticity of the ingredients, her best friend Parvati specially sent an owl to ask relatives in her hometown to send local spices. So many people, where are they going? Malfoy couldn't help asking curiously when he met a mighty group of 7. Knowing that it was Parvati who was going to treat him, his eyes lit up. This is a good opportunity to unite the members of the group, my dad always told me to. So he approached enthusiastically, saying that he could also give a little help. Although Lavender is not very happy about this, her ideal situation is to have lunch with Lu Ren under the mild sunshine, and Lu Ren eats dishes full of her love. As a result, there are now 8 people. It's a potluck, it's definitely a potluck. But fortunately, she still cooks the most showy main course. A group of people arrived at the vegetable field, and there was a small open space next to the vegetable field for the little wizards to cook at this time. Some young wizards were already busy in the open space. Parvati has already prepared the stove, chopping board and a strangely shaped pot in advance. It is a pot, but it is a large iron plate with a slight depression in the middle. In addition, there is a sack of food. Seeing these preparations, Lu Ren felt a little guilty. They prepared the dishes carefully, but he looked at them with colored glasses. It was really too bad for him. Parvati quickly took out the prepared ingredients, and the cooking began. First, she took out a palm-sized round bread, cut it in half, then took out a knife and spread a thick layer of butter on it. Wow, butter bread. Ron expressed his willingness to eat it. I didn't expect Cheyenne-Su people to eat this too. Then Parvati picked out some dusty chocolate sauce from a small jar and spread it on the other half of the bread, which still looked pretty good. Although the heat feels a bit high, the taste should be very good. Hermione also expressed a positive attitude towards this. Lu Ren felt that he could accept the bread now, and it looked delicious. After spreading the chocolate sauce, Parvati spread some cream on top and spread the bread out on the chopping board. It does look like a calorie bomb, but for lunch, I'm growing up. Lu Ren commented in his heart. Parvati suddenly took out some fried items similar to shrimp crackers from a jar, and sprinkled them on the bread, forming a thick layer. Then she started spreading some green sauce on the other half of the bread. Lu Ren hoped it was matcha. After smearing the green sauce, Lu Ren thought it was over, but unexpectedly she took out a bottle from a box and squeezed circles of yellow sauce on the bread, probably curry. Behind the yellow unknown sauce is a few rings of mayonnaise arranged like a mosquito coil, and behind the mayonnaise is an off-white unknown sauce. Every second, Lu Ren thought that Parvati had finished cooking, but in the next second she continued the dish from a strange angle. After adding 3 kinds of sauces, a slice of cheese and a little pepper, Parvati finished his calorie sandwich, cut it into 4 small pieces, put them on a plate, and handed it to he who was already staring blankly. Sensitive. Try it. Parvati seemed in a good mood. Just treat it as an appetizer. Hermione's expression was a bit complicated. She picked up a small piece of heavy bread, and then Malfoy on the side also showed embarrassment, but he also picked 1 piece, and Lu Ren and Ron shared the remaining 2 pieces. The 4 tasted it. The taste is a bit weird. It's not that bad, but there is too much sauce, and it feels like swallowing a few spoonfuls of sauce in one bite. I can't taste anything, it's just sweet and greasy. Lu Ren even felt a little full after eating a quarter of the bread. Lavender was not idle while Parvati was making order. She cut 3 tomatoes into small cubes with great speed, and then cut 3 onions in the same way. Then, she put a whole piece of butter on the hot iron plate. The butter melted quickly, and then Lavender sprinkled a lot of cumin into it, and after the aroma came out, she began to pour the freshly cut butter into it. Tomatoes and onions. Then, she poured the holy water in the crystal bottle into it. At this time, Parvati had already attracted the attention of others, until the aroma from her side burst out, and Lu Ren glanced over while chewing bread. Oh, this is not bad. Wait a minute. What the hell? Lu Ren had just praised Lavender's craftsmanship, when she saw her take out a strange kitchen utensil that looked like a floor drain with a handle, and put the iron plate. All the vegetables on it were pressed into a mushy shape. Then she added a pot of peeled and boiled potatoes, and by the way, mashed the potatoes into paste with her sword and paste. Lu Ren. Well, it's not a big problem. Isn't the curry also mushy? So far everything is normal, I hope. End of this chapter. Chapter 121. Meals are eaten at noon. People are. Lu Ren wanted to escape, but couldn't. Lavender's cuisine is gradually moving towards the path of traditional Indian cuisine. All kinds of seasonings and vegetables were mixed together and turned into a red and yellow paste. Then she scooped out a blank spot in the middle of the batter and added another hunk of butter, then some chopped onion, ginger powder, garlic paste and Parvati's secret masala, and finally she finish off with a generous handful of red chili powder and turmeric powder and a pinch of salt. She mixed the spices into a brown paste, and then she sprinkled some parsley on top. Don't say it, it's still pretty. Lu Ren comforted himself in his heart. Overall, this dish is a bit like a sunflower, with a circle of yellow paste on the outside, and a brown round paste inside, with some green coriander dotted on it. Damn it, stop it. When Lu Ren was praising the appearance of this dish, Lavender mixed the two colors of paste, yellow, brown, and green, and gradually turned into an indescribable color. Cheyenne-whose dishes are like this, which will catch your eye with the bright colors at the beginning, and then as the steps progress, all dishes will turn into curry colors, and every time you think the dish is ready for dinner, they will continue to cook in a magical way. This is Cheyenne-who cuisine. Generally speaking, Cheyenne-who cuisine is the most appetizing when it is first cooked. Lavender took out a large bowl and put the prepared dishes into it. Just when Lu Ren felt that she was ready, she poured the dishes back on the iron plate, and then seemed to repeat the steps just now. Lu Ren was very confused. He didn't understand. What's the point of doing it again like this? Secondary processing to remove impurities? Lavender, who repeated the process, completely ended the cooking. This time she took out a plate, put the paste on the plate, then sprinkled some coriander, raw onion on it, and squeezed some lemon juice into it. Then a spoon filled with solid butter was placed on the dish. The butter slowly melted and flowed into the dish, making the dish a bit greasy. Afterwards, Lavender rubbed a little oil on the iron plate, cut a large piece of bread in half, and then spread the bread on the iron plate until the iron plate was wiped clean. Then the bread was put on the plate too. White pot bag, seeing is better than hearing 100 things. Today, Lu Ren saw the famous and amazing delicacies of Cheyenne-who. No matter what kind of dish it is, as long as it is of the iron plate series, it will most likely be served with a steamed pot bun in the end. Period. The dish was placed on the table. Ron looked at it with tears, and Hermione looked at it silently. Lu Ren, you eat. Lavender came up and said with a smile. Lu Ren couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of spit. This dish is simply made with oil instead of water, which is not much different from drinking oil directly. Lu Ren grabbed Malfoy and dragged him out from behind the crowd. Malfoy, come and taste it too. Malfoy paled, his lips quivered a few times, but in the end he agreed. Until now, he didn't know the price of maintaining the relationship. Lu Ren also tried to invite other people, but they were all declined. At this point they all had an excellent excuse, and Parvati made a ridiculously thick vegetable sandwich, with a palm-thick vegetable sandwich between two slices of ordinary toast. Harry, Ron, Hermione and the Parvati sisters happened to be alone, so Lu Ren and Malfoy, who didn't get the sandwich, could only enjoy the stew in front of them. Lu Ren tried to take a bite. Reasonably, except that it was a bit greasy. It was good in other respects. He and Malfoy quickly ate up the dish. A satisfied smile appeared on Lavender's face. Although Lu Ren didn't eat it alone, the goal was achieved. Ah, it's really delicious. Lu Ren's words were not against his will. Apart from the lack of taste and the lack of production methods, this dish has no major shortcomings so far. The rich aroma of Martha the Pull and excess salt overwhelmed the other flavors. After eating, everyone dispersed, and they still had classes in the afternoon. In the afternoon, Gryffindor has a transfiguration class, and Slytherin has a charms class. After this class, the two houses will have a flying lesson together. The flying lessons at Hogwarts are actually somewhat similar to the physical education lessons in the non-magical world. Of course, Ms. Hooch is strong and healthy, but she doesn't get sick very much, so weekly flying lessons can still be guaranteed. Mrs. Pants will teach the little wizards some skills of riding a broom and the rules of the Quidditch game for a flying genius like Harry. The things taught in flying lessons are too basic, but for a Chocobo like Hermione, flying lessons are still necessary. In the first year class, Hermione was worst at flying. Every week of flying lessons is a new challenge for her, and Ron will also take this opportunity to regain the confidence he lost in the past week. When the flying class was about to end, Ms. Hooch was teaching the little wizards common Quidditch tricks. Counter bludger, as the name suggests, is when the hitter hits the bludger with a backhand. Then her words were interrupted by an outstretched hand. With a pale face, Lu Ren asked Ms. Hoki to go to the bathroom. Although Ms. Hoki was a little unhappy because of being interrupted, she still approved Lu Ren's request. Watching Lu Ren trot all the way away from the Quidditch pitch, She couldn't help but said, "Students, try to go before class." She was interrupted again, this time by Malfoy. "You don't want to go to the toilet too, do you?" Mrs. Hooch's tone was no longer very friendly. Malfoy? Yes. Mrs. Hooch didn't speak, she just stared at Malfoy with her hawk-like eyes. At this time, Malfoy's stomach was already shaking, even making noises like gurgling. He felt a little bad. If he got out in full view, his career as a wizard would be over, Malfoy thought pessimistically. Fortunately, Mrs. Hooch saw that his expression was really bad, so she waved her hand and let him go. Soon, in the washroom on the first floor of the castle, Lou Ren, HMPH, Malfoy, ask Mrs. Pants for a leave of absence for me. I'm going to the school hospital. X2, after the 2 weak people came out of the cubicle, their first words were surprisingly similar. You, vomit, X2. They were about to say something, but a strong vomit came over them and they both lay down beside the sink, motionless. After a while, the feeling in the stomach got better, but the stomach started to hurt again after solving the problem again. They cheered up and rushed to the school hospital on the second floor. End of this chapter. Chapter 122 Professor Quirrell's Halloween Gift. Lou Ren and Malfoy didn't show up for the next flight lesson. It was normal. When they asked for leave and left, it was less than 10 minutes before the end of the lesson, but they were still nowhere to be seen until dinner time before Harry and Ron went to the Halloween banquet. They were also briefly worried about Lou Ren's physical condition, but just a moment later, when the two entered the auditorium and saw the festive Halloween decorations and unlimited meals, they immediately forgot about Lou Ren. Only Hermione was still worried. In order to let the little wizards have a wonderful Halloween, Dumbledore specifically stated that he will pay for the consumption of the audience tonight, and the little wizards can eat as much as they want. In order to increase the festive atmosphere, Hogwarts also prepared thousands of bats, which fluttered everywhere on the walls and ceiling of the school auditorium. In addition, Dumbledore also created a lot of small dark clouds. These dark clouds hovered and danced above the dining table, spewing out a puff of smoke from time to time. Coupled with this specially dimmed candlelight, it added a bit of gloom. The candlesticks on weekdays were all replaced with pumpkins. Candles flickered in the pumpkin's belly, and hundreds of pumpkin lanterns were suspended in the air. Under the effect of magic, the candlelight was no longer warm, but looked eerie blue flame. If a muggle strayed here, he must have thought he was in hell. The scariest thing is not these pumpkin lanterns in the sky, but the lanterns in the corridors and classrooms, because Peeves would cunningly hide in these lanterns, and suddenly jumped out and shouted when the little wizards were most relaxed, scaring them out of their wits, then sneak away before the little wizards can react, looking for the next victim. This trick has been tried and tested. As a result, many little wizards will subconsciously avoid pumpkin lanterns when they see them. In addition to these, dark yellow ribbons were hung on the edges of the corridors and windows, and the entire castle satisfied everyone's impression of Halloween in every way. After the students were seated, all kinds of delicacies suddenly appeared on golden plates. Everything seemed to be the same as before, and tears of happiness flowed from the corners of the little wizards' mouths. The Wizarding world also celebrates Halloween, but the origin is slightly different from that of Muggles. Muggles come from the Romans and Christianity, and the origin of the Wizarding world is from the Celts and Druids. Although there are differences in the origin of Halloween between the magic world and the non-magic world, with the passage of time, the customs and habits of both sides have been completely integrated, and there is no essential difference between Halloween and the two worlds. And whether they come from Celts or Romans, Christianity or Druids, there is one protagonist in common: wizards, and maybe pumpkins. Halloween is a holiday for wizards. For people in the Wizarding world, Halloween is really a super important holiday. They want to forget their troubles and let go of their stomachs to have a full meal. When the little wizards were eating and drinking, an uninvited guest suddenly broke in. It was Professor Quirrell. He tells everyone that a troll has appeared in the castle, after which he passes out. There was an uproar in the auditorium, and it was not until Professor Dumbledore exploded purple fireworks with his wand that everyone fell silent. Dumbledore quickly made arrangements for the little wizards. He ordered the prefects to take the wizards from their houses back to the dormitory, and then he and the professor split up to find the troll. However, the reaction of the little wizards made him almost lose control of his expression. Every little wizard subconsciously picked up the plate closest to him. Trolls and the like are not a big problem, and Professor Dumbledore will bear it if the sky falls. But if you miss the free meal, you really miss it. Wizards don't really think much of trolls. This kind of thing has a pitifully low IQ. It is so low that the worst score in the wizard exam is indicated by its name. It is slow to move, has no magic attack methods, and has fatal flaws in defense. Nothing to be afraid of. Of course, as magical creatures without magic, giant monsters do have one skill, that is, their tyrannical bodies and a little bit of magic resistance. Any wizard who underestimated them paid a heavy price. Humans are also on the diet of trolls, and trolls, like brown bears, like to eat their prey alive. Watching one's own body being eaten bit by bit before death is an extremely terrifying torture. The little wizards obediently held their plates, followed their prefects, and left the auditorium in an orderly manner. I have to say that Percy's ability is still very good. He can always be the first to organize the team to evacuate. Of course, he is always prone to overlook things, such as his little brother. Percy's little brother, Ron, was now being held by the arms of Hermione and Harry. They all thought of one person, Lou Ren, in their eyes. Lou Ren didn't know about the troll yet. After a short thought, they decided to leave the main force to go to Lou Ren and tell him about the troll. And where is Lou Ren at this time? He's still in the bathroom on the second floor. He and Malfoy had just come out of the school hospital. Madame Pomfrey prescribed a potion for them, which successfully relieved their symptoms, but the psychological damage caused to them by the experience just now cannot be erased by the potion. Of course, the emptiness in the body cannot be filled by a cup of potion. Malfoy turned the tap to hot water, washed his face seriously, and then took out a small perfume bottle and sprayed himself a few times. "Help me smell it. Do I still smell bad?" Malfoy moved closer, but was pushed away by Lou Ren. "Please maintain a normal social distance." Lou Ren looked disgusted. "If there is no taste, this action is a bit disgusting. If it is smelly, it is very disgusting." Malfoy looked frustrated. "It's over. I've lost the face of the Malfoy family. Let's insist that we skip class, okay?" Lou Ren covered his forehead, accepted calmly. "Lies cannot cover up lies. Also, hurry up. I feel the need to leave this place." Lou Ren had the impression that a giant monster would be put in the school on the eve of Halloween in the first grade, but he didn't know which floor it was on, and he didn't want to be confronted with this kind of thing. Hermione is in a good mood today, so she shouldn't be stuck in the bathroom. "It stinks," Malfoy suddenly complained. "If I smell like this, I won't go out even if I'm killed." Lou Ren also smelled a vague stench, like the smell of smelly socks mixed with ammonia water. For a moment, Lou Ren felt as if he was in a public toilet on the streets of Paris. The washrooms at Hogwarts are actually very clean. If there is a comparison, it is as clean as the toilets in airports in big cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. Today was the first time Lou Ren smelled this smell since he went to school. Malfoy felt nauseous again. Of course he couldn't vomit anything now. Lou Ren was thinking, what on earth is so stinky? End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123. Your childhood. My childhood seems different. In a flash of inspiration, there seemed to be a thin shining line running across Lou Ren's back, and he guessed the source of the stench. Lou Ren simply could not accept this. Why is it that in the original book or in other fandoms, the protagonists rescued Hermione from the trolls? Why did they turn into saving Malfoy when it came to me? If life is a novel, Lou Ren said that he must have a chat with the author of his novel, and everyone should make love make out male sign. But it was no use complaining. He pulled Malfoy up and hid in a cubicle. At this time, the three of Harry had already reached the second floor of the castle, and they also smelled the pungent stench. Then they heard heavy footsteps and a strange grunting sound like phlegm stuck in their throats. They hid in the corner of the corridor, looked towards the source of the sound, and saw a scene that they would never forget in their lives. A mountain was walking towards them. The monster was 15 feet tall, and its skin was as dull as granite, but it was covered with raised muscles and scars. His huge body was not like a pile of sand like other trolls, but really like a pile of sand. Like a stone mountain, it reveals a sense of strength. It had a poor head, small for it, and wore a bison's skull for protection. It also had short stump-like legs and big, muddy, chapped, foul-smelling feet. It held a wooden stick in its hand, with a few pieces of stone stuck in it because its arms were too long. The wooden stick made a harsh friction sound as it dragged on the ground. The troll stopped at a door, the men's room on the second floor, and sniffed, then managed to squeeze its way into the room. Harry noticed that the key still hung on the toilet door, and a bold idea took shape in his mind. After a brief exchange, they rushed to the toilet door, and quickly locked the door from the outside. Success! They blushed with excitement, and then they ran along the passage to the auditorium. Hurry up and find the professors. The following words were interrupted by a loud bang, and Harry looked back, stunned. The troll realized that he was locked out of the door, put his arms around his chest, and closed the door with his body. It smashed against a part of the wall and broke through the wall. It looked at the three of Harry who were running, let out a roar, and then chased after them. Hermione let out a shrill scream when she saw this. Lou Ren had already held his wand in his hand when the troll came in, and was about to fight the troll, but he heard a familiar scream. Lou Ren? ? But he couldn't help thinking about it. He rushed out of the cubicle, and then ran out of the bathroom, and then he saw the huge monster. 15 feet is about 4.5 meters. It may not be very intuitive to say it, but the average loft apartment is only 4.5 meters high. So this monster, like a house, can still give people a strong impact, and of course its smell is also very impactful. Sprinting against a monster like this is like standing in front of a heavy-duty truck on full throttle. Although the fat house monster has turned into a muscular man, but fortunately Lou Ren is a mage, and he is very lucky to have chosen the remote profession of mage. Lou Ren raised his wand, and a bright light flashed. Confringo. This big target was still very accurate, and an explosion curse directly splashed a blood flower on the giant monster, tearing apart the muscles around it. What? Lou Ren was taken aback. The damage caused by the explosion spell he had just done was lower than he expected. The troll was attracted to hatred by him, abandoned the three fleeing Harrys, and ran towards him. Lou Ren's explosive curse spewed out like a machine gun, and the troll was soon covered in blood. It roared angrily, and threw the stick in its hand towards Lou Ren, who rolled over and avoided it. All I heard was the wooden stick flying all the way with a sharp sound of breaking through the air, and it was directly inserted into the wall behind Lou Ren. The troll who threw the javelin did not stop, and took the opportunity to approach Lou Ren. At this time, the distance between Lou Ren and it was less than 5 meters. He could clearly see the giant monster's raised flesh and bones under its muscles, and its heart beating could be faintly seen from the wound on its chest. Its helmet was also shattered, one eye was tightly closed, with a piece of broken bone stuck in it. Blood and gelatinous substances were flowing out from the corner of the eye, while the other eye was blood red, revealing the only madness. Sectum's Emperor, Shen Feng Wuiying. Just when Lou Ren was about to cast the explosive curse again, the troll suddenly stood still. The madness in its eyes gradually dissipated, leaving only cloudy and lifeless eyeballs, and then its head slowly slid down from its neck. The stinky blood drenched Lou Ren all over. Then Lou Ren heard a burst of chaotic footsteps. After wiping the blood off his face, he saw Snape appear at the end of the corridor, followed by Quirrell and Professor McGonagall. Quirrell ran to the body of the still slightly trembling troll, and after just one glance, he revealed an extremely complicated expression. It should be a combination of remorse, shock, and distress. Then he lowered his head, leaned against the wall, and the pair has fainted. Snape also came to the side of the troll. He didn't dislike the smell of the troll, but bent down to examine the troll's body carefully. Professor McGonagall stared at Lou Ren, who was covered in blood. Her body trembled slightly, her lips were pale. It was the first time that Lou Ren saw Professor McGonagall, who had completely entered an angry state. Lou Ren, what tricks are you playing again? Professor McGonagall's voice was cold. You should stay in the dormitory honestly at this time. You are really lucky, but fortunately Professor Snape came just in time, or you'd already be spending Halloween in the belly of a troll. How do I know what's going on? The blood on Lou Ren's body was dripping onto the floor. Malfoy and I had a bad stomach. Just after we came out of the school hospital, we were blocked by this guy in the bathroom. Lou Ren directly pushed back. He is very righteous, and he doesn't know about the troll. He is an innocent victim. Think about it, how much hurt it is for a child to come out of the toilet and see a troll. It was only at this time that Professor McGonagall found Malfoy shivering in the corner of the toilet. It seems that what Lou Ren said is true. This is easy to verify, just check with Madame Pomfrey. Professor McGonagall, all this. It seems that she is really ignorant. What to do? Why don't you turn into a cat and run away? At this moment, Professor McGonagall wished he was a passing kitten who didn't understand anything. End of this chapter. Chapter 124 The Greedy Orange Kitten. Fortunately, Snape's voice broke the embarrassment. This is a mountain troll, and it is a very rare type. Even in the mountains around Hogwarts, this kind of troll is rare. There are 3 types of trolls: mountain trolls, forest trolls, and river trolls. Different types have different appearances and habitats. The one in front of him is obviously a mountain monster, and it is also a particularly good fighter type among giant monsters. With Snape interrupting, Professor McGonagall's embarrassing situation was eased. Then she looked over at Harry and the three of them. So Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, Miss Granger, why are you here? Are you eating too much? Quirrell still had the attitude of I've passed out, you don't care about me, while Snape was quietly watching the show with his arms folded. Harry and Ron were at a loss for words. It's easy for Lou Ren to get rid of the crime, but they are in big trouble. They left the team privately. This was disorganized and undisciplined. Sweat began to form on Harry's head. Suddenly Hermione spoke. I'm sorry, Professor. Hermione resisted the blame alone, saying that it was her arrogant hope that she could deal with the troll, so she encouraged the two to come together. Professor McGonagall stared at Hermione for a while, and thought for a while, silly girl, you are only in the first grade, how can you deal with a magical creature like a troll? And bring Potter and Mr. Weasley and you alone, what difference does one have? Harry and Ron, don't worry, Professor, are we useless at all? This is impossible, can't we be shields? Miss Granger, I am very disappointed in you. Because of this matter, Gryffindor deducted 10 points, and you too, she told you to come, so you come? She told you to jump off the building, why don't you two go? Gryffindor will deduct another 10 points, I hope you will not follow blindly in the future. Professor McGonagall decided on the punishment for Harry and the others, and then asked them to go back to the Gryffindor Tower to enjoy the Halloween dinner. After dealing with the trio, she looked at Lou Ren again. You have shown outstanding courage, and Gryffindor should add, points for that. Snape snorted. McGonagall glared at her without hesitation. Professor Snape, do you have any objections? How about adding 5 points to Slytherin? Because that kid Draco didn't scream when he met the troll. Snape was speechless. He grabbed Malfoy and left the scene quickly. Professor McGonagall cleaned the clothes of Lou Ren, who was covered in blood, although Lou Ren still felt that there was a lingering monster's body odor in his nose. In fact, he had become clean. Afterwards, Professor McGonagall inquired about Lou Ren's physical condition, asked you if his stomach was still uncomfortable, and then let him go. Pig nose. Lou Ren returned to the fat lady's portrait and shouted the password, and a lively voice came from inside. Lou Ren entered the common room. As soon as he climbed out of the tunnel, Lou Ren was grabbed by more than a dozen hands. Let us welcome the great troll Shredder back to his loyal common room. Then Lou Ren was thrown up, then caught, and then thrown up again. The lion cubs in the lion courtyard were very excited. Before that, Lou Ren just defeated Marcus, who was in the 5th grade. Although he looked like a troll, he was not a real troll. After all this time, Lou Ren really took care of a real giant monster. I'm not, don't talk nonsense, Lou Ren loudly defended. He tried to attribute the credit to Snape, but the cubs obviously didn't like this. They just cheered over and over again, and then they ate and drank all they could. The Weasley brothers might become the biggest winners tonight, and Lou Ren also made a fortune on the eve of Halloween. The lion cubs had a good vent of their exuberant energy, and Percy, the only one who could break the lion cubs in the carnival, was not there. He was taken away by Penelope of Ravenclaw. They haven't come back yet, so their revelry didn't stop until midnight. It was already Friday when Lou Ren returned to his dormitory with a stomach full of glutinous rice, sausages, rice wine and pies. What's worse is that there are 2 potions lessons this morning. In this situation, I can only pray that I and one of my roommates can get up on time. The wealth and life of the entire dormitory is on that person. Lou Ren turned the cat bag upside down, intending to let the little fat tiger come out to get some air. The child lived in that kitten bag all day long, and it was pitiful. Lou Ren had seriously considered taking it to the Forbidden Forest every evening. Take a walk, but haven't put it into action yet. But today the cat bag was turned around, but the little tiger didn't roll out with a dazed face as usual, but fell straight on all fours. Pudgy fat tiger lay motionless on Lou Ren's bed with his 4 little paws in his arms. Lou Ren noticed the abnormality, so he quickly picked up the little tiger. Fortunately, he was still alive. He didn't know what happened. He groped fat tiger's body, but found nothing unusual. He peeked into the cat bag and felt his scalp explode. The ball of smelly socks that he threw in the corner was smashed. The Philosopher's Stone inside has disappeared. Fuck, Lou Ren felt his scalp go numb. He glanced at the fat tiger lying on the bed, and a thought quickly formed in his mind. Maybe this guy ate the Philosopher's Stone, but it was a rock. How did it swallow such a big stone? But in any case, he needs to find a professional to deal with the problem. A cat in the non-magic world would have to take it to the pet hospital if it swallowed a whistle, but this guy swallowed the Philosopher's Stone. But going to Madame Pomfrey's place is definitely inappropriate. Just because the swallowed foreign object is a Philosopher's Stone, it's not appropriate for her to know about it, not to mention that he's not a veterinarian. But Dumbledore is more suitable. I have a pet, he also has a pet. My pet eats the Philosopher's Stone, so it is very extraordinary. His pet is a phoenix, so it is also very unusual, so he should be able to solve Fat Tiger problem. After reasoning like a clown, Lou Ren decided to rush to Dumbledore's office. Fortunately, both the principal's office and the Gryffindor lounge are located on the 8th floor, and it was quick to get there. Fortunately, Dumbledore hadn't changed the password yet, allowing Lou Ren to drive straight in. He hurriedly ran to the door of the office along the spiral staircase, and knocked on the door in a panic. Boom, boom. Professor Dumbledore. X3. After knocking on the door in 3 steps, Lou Ren waited patiently for a while, but when there was no movement, he repeated it again. When it was repeated for the 3rd time, there was an obviously angry fending sound from inside. Soon there was a sound of footsteps, and Dumbledore opened the door of the office with a helpless expression. 10,000 updates are over. Good night. End of this chapter. Chapter 125. Sirius Black. Dumbledore wore a nightgown embroidered with stars, with happy written all over his face. My dear child, I am 110 years old this year, and I still want to see the turn of the millennium, so why do you want to disturb the sleep of a centenarian? Lou Ren blushed. He really did something wrong, but there is no way. This kind of thing can only come to Dumbledore. He took out the Fat Tiger from his arms and handed it to Dumbledore. Professor, this guy ate the Philosopher's Stone. Dumbledore. If Tom knows about this, he might be pissed off. Dumbledore had a wonderful idea in his mind. He asked Lou Ren to enter the office, then picked up the little tiger, and checked it over and over again. Nothing unusual. It is digesting the Philosopher's Stone now, and it will wake up after a while. Dumbledore concluded, however, to be on the safe side, it can stay with me temporarily during this period, allowing me to. Do you want to observe? To be honest, this is the first time I have seen a tiger that has eaten the Philosopher's Stone. His words were interrupted by a sharp cry. Lou Ren looked towards the source of the sound, and it turned out to be a bird the size of a turkey. It was crouching on a tall gilded branch behind the door, glaring at Lou Ren and Dumbledore. Lou Ren knew that this was Dumbledore's bird, Phoenix Fox, but more precisely, it should be called Phoenix Fox. The difference between Phoenix and Phoenix is very huge. If both have the characteristic of immortality and are the same species, then any country in the world with an inland sea can be called Rome. In fact, the force of the phoenix is much higher than that of the phoenix. Phoenix is one of the 4 ancient spirit beasts in the Central Plains. The other 3 are dragon, turtle and unicorn. The so-called phoenix in the West is actually phoenix, but it was translated into phoenix due to translation problems. The difference between the two is huge. The phoenix is immortal, but the phoenix is reborn every once in a while. The phoenix inhabits the parasol tree, and never falls from a non-blessed place, while the phoenix is not so particular about it, and the shape of the two is fundamentally different. The ancients in the Central Plains also recorded the calls of phoenixes. The male cry is about to come, and the female cry is full of feet. In short, Fox is a phoenix, not a phoenix. Now, Fox is clearly very unhappy. You actually want to have a second pet. It's fine to raise it, but it's still a cat. Although I am a phoenix, this thing is not an ordinary cat. The baby is very angry. Dumbledore had no choice but to stand up and assure Fox that the tiger was only staying here temporarily and would never become a second pet. Lou Ren also repeatedly promised that he would pick up the fat tiger when he woke up. After a while of appeasement, Fox stuffed his head under the wings, acquiescing to the existence of the tiger, but when Dumbledore tried to groom it, he was almost pecked by it. The dark prison cell, the dripping and moss-covered stone walls, the faint sound of waves from the outside world, and the pervasive despair. Sirius Black woke up early as usual. To be more precise, he didn't sleep much at night. As soon as he closed his eyes, the faces of James, Lily, and Peter would appear alternately, and anger would startle him from sleep. It's been like this for 10 years, and Black knows that this anger will continue until he dies. Thanks to this rage, combined with the animagus transformation, Black was kept awake in Azkaban. Of course, in addition to these 2 points, there are other adjustments. At this time, the sun had not yet risen, and the surrounding area was chilly. He subconsciously wrapped the blanket tightly around his body. Unexplained ravings came from the cell next door, and screams could be heard faintly in the distance. The corners of Black's mouth twitched. Listening to the desperate cries of these Death Eaters was the rare spice in his life. Bellatrix's cell is not far from him, and he loves to tease this crazy cousin. Listening to her impotent roar is really better than listening to the concert. Wait a little longer, and Bella will wake up. What can I use to tease this guy today? Blake was lost in thought. Seeing how energetic you are, I'm relieved, Blake. A deep and slow male voice suddenly came from outside. Accompanied by this sound is the sound of the key rubbing against the lock and the bar opening. Sirius looked towards the source of the sound. A tall, bald, dark-skinned wizard was standing at the door of the cell, carrying a bunch of things in his hand. Kingsley. Sirius recognized his comrade in arms back then. Yo, what wind brought Mr. Auror here? Is it to deliver scrap newspapers to me? The biggest role of the Daily Prophet is to wipe my ass, and the second biggest role is, well, I can't think of anything except what else can it do with its ass. Can you get me a few copies of the Quibbler? Ahem, Blake, you are free, Kingsley said as Fudge's reliable confidant. He has just received an unbelievable task. A trace of confusion flashed across Sirius' skinny face. Actually, you mean to say that I'm worthless and completely free? Kingsley shrugged. Your ambiguity is not funny at all. He threw the ball in his hand into the cell, and then carried Black out. Ha ha ha. After learning the ins and outs of the matter, Sirius laughed hysterically. He suddenly wanted to shout at the other Death Eaters, telling them that he was free, but he hadn't taken action yet. His head there was a sharp pain. The pain blurred his vision, and when he opened his eyes again, he found himself lying on the floor with the familiar chandelier in front of him. Sirius struggled to get up from the floor, and brushed off the non-existent dust. Although Creature moved slowly and could never spit ivory out of his mouth, he still diligently cleaned his bedroom to be spotless. It's a dream again. Sirius sighed. He's been out of that hell for almost 2 months now. At first he couldn't sleep at all. As soon as he closed his eyes, a flood of painful memories would flood him, but fortunately, the symptoms have been relieved a lot recently. At least happy plots began to appear in the dream. He walked slowly to the wall and stood there motionless, his eyes fixed on a picture, on which there were 4 Hogwarts students standing there arm in arm, showing the sunlight towards the camera. Smile. Turning sharply away, Sirius made a decision. End of this chapter. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.